Chapter 15. Immortal didn't expect that the system could be upgraded. When he heard the system's voice, he couldn't help but feel happy. According to his experience playing games in his previous life, after the system was upgraded, he would usually receive a large number of update rewards. He immediately said in his mind, "Upgrade." The system's voice came, "Frowny face upgrade requires 12 hours. Cannot sign in during the upgrade." Immortal shrugged. It was only 12 hours, not much. The entire base would definitely be under martial law tomorrow, so there was no need to sign in outside. He could sleep in peace. Thinking of this, Immortal yawned. Not long after, a light snoring sound came out of his mouth. 3 o'clock at night. Outside the base chief's office, the lights were bright. After confirming that the residents of District T were safe, all the members of the corpse hunting team and patrol team gathered here. The members of the corpse hunting team discussed animatedly. "That mysterious powerhouse is too strong. I can't even dream that there would be such a powerhouse. If it weren't for them, the entire community of more than 5,000 people would be finished today." The 15 members of the body hunters were also here. They heard the discussion around them, and each of them had a complicated expression. Most of the body hunters lowered their heads silently. Before tonight, the 15 body hunters had become the focus of the base. Each of them was the star of the base, the hero of the base. They were also proud of themselves. They were even a little arrogant. Outside the base, they killed hundreds and thousands of zombies. They felt that they were almost invincible. No matter how many zombies there were, in their eyes, they were just a group of ants. With a flip of their hand, they could kill a large number of zombies with a slap. However, today's events made them realize how ignorant they were. And how stupid they were. They were too arrogant, too full of themselves. Their strength was just a little stronger than ordinary people. Their speed was just a little faster than ordinary people. They didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. But today's facts gave them a resounding slap in the face. This slap in the face also made them completely sober. It made them understand that they were just a little stronger than ordinary people. They even needed that mysterious powerhouse to save them. If it weren't for that mysterious powerhouse, they would probably be zombies now. Most importantly, that mysterious powerhouse swept away the zombies with a chain. Thousands of zombies were killed in one move. Although he was far more powerful than these hunters, he was much more low-key than them. Last time, there were mutated zombies in the laboratory. This time, there were a large number of zombies. That mysterious expert was instantly killed. Then, after the matter was settled, he would leave, concealing his achievements and fame. Compared to that mysterious expert, they were simply a bunch of clowns. Thinking of this, their heads hung even lower. The slightly effeminate Vice Captain Guojutao saw that his team members were in low spirits. He turned to look at the captain. At this time, the captain had to stand up and say something. However, the captain was already ashamed to the point of being unable to show his face. He was also responsible for the team members' arrogance and ego. What could he say in this situation? Seeing this, Guojutao could only withdraw his gaze. After pondering for a moment, he stood up. With a slightly feminine voice, he said, "Brothers, I know that everyone is feeling terrible. I feel the same way. We were too arrogant, too full of ourselves. Compared to that mysterious expert, we're nothing. But we should thank him for giving us a resounding slap in the face. This slap in the face has completely awakened us. We shouldn't be depressed just like this. We have to pull ourselves together. Work hard and train harder to become stronger. Strive to be as strong as that mysterious expert one day." The other team members heard this and raised their heads one after another. The captain also raised his head in surprise. Looking at this slightly feminine vice captain that he had always looked down on. A patrol team member next to him heard this and hesitated for a moment. His hands began to clap. The other patrol team members and the corpse hunters also clapped when they saw this. Paul said, "Don't be depressed. That mysterious expert saved us. If he saw us so depressed, I think he would be disappointed. With the mysterious expert here, we have no reason to be depressed." The body hunters heard this and finally raised their heads. Their eyes were glowing with a different kind of light. At the same time, in the base chief's office, the chief was flipping through a thick stack of notes in his hand. Page 1. I saw that person fly over the wall. Page 2. That mysterious expert dragged a long iron chain. With one sweep, dozens of zombies were cut in half. Page 3. A mutated zombie's entire upper body was stuck in the wall, suspected to be the work of the mysterious expert. Page 4. The mysterious expert didn't move, and the heads of more than 1,000 zombies around him exploded one after another. Thousands of zombies were killed in one move. Page 5. The more the base chief read, the more shocked his face became. Could a person really reach such a powerful level? Every single thing in here, if taken out individually and placed on another person, would be an absolute miracle. And now, so many miracles were gathered on the same person. This could no longer be called a miracle. It was simply a miracle. If it was in the past, he would have dismissed any of these notes as nonsense and bewitching. He would even say that they were hallucinating. But now, hundreds of people were saying the same thing. And all of them were saying it with great detail. If one person was hallucinating, that would be normal. But now, hundreds of people were saying the same thing. He couldn't say that they were all hallucinating, right? The base chief continued to slowly flip through the notes. Killed thousands of zombies in seconds without moving. Killed thousands of zombies in seconds without even moving a finger. Almost in most of the notes, the most mentioned sentence was, killed thousands of zombies in seconds. He really couldn't imagine what kind of scene that was. He had already seen it for himself just now. The heads of those zombies were indeed, as these people said, they had all exploded. If the mysterious expert used weapons such as knives and guns, or fists and feet, he could kill thousands of zombies in seconds. He could barely accept it. But now, he killed thousands of zombies in seconds without moving. This was a bit too ridiculous. But the facts were in front of him, and he had to believe it. And there was one thing he really couldn't figure out. With such powerful strength, why didn't the mysterious expert dare to show up? What was he afraid of? Wasn't it good to be regarded as a hero and a star by everyone? Wasn't it good to enjoy everyone's worship and support? After thinking for a long time, he couldn't think of a reason. He lit a cigarette and looked out the window at the sky that was gradually turning white. He took a deep breath and exhaled a cloud of smoke. Who the hell are you? At the same time, Immortal, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly sneezed for no reason. He turned over and wiped his face. Then the sound slowly sounded again. Chapter 16. While Immortal was still sleeping in the house, 50 kilometers to the northwest of the base, there was a dam here. Around the dam, there were tens of thousands of zombies densely packed. To the east of the dam, there was an abandoned residential area. In the residential area, abandoned cars were parked haphazardly in the yard. Almost all the windows in the residential building had no glass. The cold wind blew, and the windows made ghost-like sounds. During the day, there was silence here, like a dead city. However, every night, this place was densely packed with zombies. Most of them were ordinary zombies. But occasionally, 1 or 2 mutated zombies would appear. At this time, on the top of the 32nd floor, a zombie was standing there. His long hair was messy in the wind. In the bloody hole in his chest, his shriveled heart could be seen. His grayish-white eyes actually flashed with a human-like gaze. Obviously, he was more intelligent than ordinary mutated zombies. His gaze crossed 50 kilometers. Using the eastern sky, he looked at the high wall of the base. Tonight, it was he who sent those mutated zombies, with more than 100 zombies, to attack the human base. Once they succeeded, their zombies would have more food. At that time, he also took hundreds of mutated zombies and more than 30,000 ordinary zombies to ambush in the woods not far from the base. Once the base really started fighting, the army would withdraw part of their forces to encircle and suppress the zombies. At that time, he could take these 30,000 zombies to attack the base wall. But he never thought that those zombies who lurked in would fail. He really couldn't figure out, how could they fail? The human body was very fragile. On the other hand, The mutated zombies' bodies were much stronger than that of humans. Those mutated zombies sneaked up on the humans at night. It was reasonable to say that they shouldn't have failed at all. What the hell was going on? Could it be that there were more powerful humans in the base? Those hunters? That was impossible. He had seen those hunters kill zombies before. Although they were stronger than ordinary humans, they weren't that strong. So, what the hell was going on? He thought for a long time, until he thought of the eastern sky. The sun shyly revealed half of its face. He also couldn't figure out the reason. But in any case, the plan to attack the human base had to be put aside for the time being. The next morning, the entire base was under martial law. All the cadaver teams, patrols, and soldiers were conducting a carpet search of T-Zone. This was to prevent any zombies from escaping. In the courtyard of the residential area in T District and in the first 8 buildings, they found a large number of headless zombie corpses. Recalling the scene of the mysterious expert killing the zombies last night, they were all shocked to the extreme. During the investigation, they found that in the room of the family of 3 in Block 9, a mutated zombie's head and upper body were stuck in the wall. When they saw this scene, the patrol members all sucked in a breath of cold air. Just how strong must one be to be able to do this? In their shock, they questioned the family of 3. Did you see the person who saved you? The woman and the little girl shook their heads. The man said, at the time, the room was filled with dust. We only saw a blurry figure. The woman still wanted to say something, but the man stopped her with his gaze. After the patrols left, the woman asked the man, don't we need to talk about that bottle of medicine? The man shook his head. The benefactor who saved us has been hiding in the base for 5 years without exposing his identity. Since he doesn't want anyone to know, of course, we can't spread his secret. The woman suddenly said, I didn't expect that. The man's eyes were filled with gratitude. If the benefactor doesn't want to be exposed, then we'll let this matter rot in our stomachs. The woman nodded heavily. The little girl next to her also nodded and said obediently, little Yen won't tell anyone either. After Immortal stayed in his room for half a day, he finally calmed down. The system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face, upgrade complete. Reward obtained, zombie roar. Reward obtained, lookout I upgraded to blood magic pupil. Reward obtained, mutated chameleon gene enhancer. Reward obtained, chameleon combat suit. Immortal couldn't help but be overjoyed when he heard this. It was the same feeling he had when he drew 1,000 skins from the lottery when he played the game. He immediately looked at the skill description. Zombie roar. Has the effect of deterring ordinary zombies. A roar can repel 100,000 zombies. Awesome. Immortal could only use these 2 words to describe it. At the same time, this zombie roar also reminded him of the giant dragon that appeared in his mind from time to time. A dragon's roar shook all beasts. Could it be that this zombie roar was somehow related to the dragon's roar? Then, he took out the mutated chameleon gene enhancer. After injecting it, he felt that something seemed to have changed in his body. He leaned against the wall. With a thought. The color of his skin changed rapidly. Soon, it turned the same white as the wall. He came to the door again. With a thought, his body turned the same dark red as the door. He had a lot of secrets. With this skill, it would be more convenient for him to do things in the future. Of course, the color of his skin changed, but his clothes didn't. So he took out the chameleon combat suit from his backpack. Chameleon combat suit, fireproof, wear-resistant, elastic material. It can change the same color according to the skin color. Immortal was overjoyed. What kind of black technology is this? Then he put on the chameleon combat suit. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary camouflage uniform. But when Immortal's body turned white, the chameleon combat suit also turned white. Immortal moved his mind. His right arm turned into a titan dragon claw. His entire right arm instantly became 3 times its original size. And the chameleon combat suit also became thicker. The sleeves were still intact. Immortal nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, the products of the system must be of high quality. Then he looked at the skill description of Blood Magic Eyes. Blood Magic Eyes. also known as the blood demon's eyes. After using it, you can see further and see through fog. You can see the corpse aura that ordinary people can't see. Immortal was puzzled. Corpse aura? Why did it feel like it was going in the direction of fantasy? The system explained frowny face, a part of the blood in a zombie's body will slowly spread in the air at an extremely slow speed. When a large number of zombies gather, the blood that spreads in the air will form corpse aura. Immortal understood. Your explanation is reasonable. Then, the system's voice sounded again. Content of this upgrade, sign in failure mechanism. Immortal nodded. That's good. Previously, he didn't dare to sign in at many unimportant places. After all, he could only sign in once a day. If he failed, it was equivalent to wasting a sign-in opportunity. But now that he could sign in again if he failed, he didn't have to worry about this. Chapter 17. 17 Zombie Hunter Tournament. 10 days later, the martial law was finally lifted. Immortal could finally come out to take a breather. After feeding the pigs and zombies, he strolled out of the zombie farm as usual. He wanted to find a place to sign in. When he passed by the warehouse of the base, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." Sign in failed. The system replied instantly. But Immortal just shrugged. After the system was upgraded, he could go to other places to sign in again if he failed to sign in. Soon, Immortal slowly strolled under the sentry tower. In the name of cleaning, he climbed up the sentry tower. The sentry tower was more than 20 meters tall. When he reached the top of the sentry tower, the soldier who was looking out glanced at Immortal and ignored him. System, sign in. The system replied instantly, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, sentry tower. Sign in reward, 1 virtual sentry tower. Immortal was puzzled. Virtual sentry tower? He checked the system backpack with his mind. There was a small translucent sentry tower model in the backpack. He focused his mind on the sentry tower model. Virtual sentry tower. After use, it can be used to guard a radius of 5 kilometers. Immortal nodded secretly. This virtual sentry tower was very practical. With this, he wouldn't have to be worried if he had to spend the night outside the base in the future. Then he returned to reality. While wiping the chair, he looked into the distance from time to time. From here, he could see the 2 lines of defense around the base. The nearest was the wall 2 kilometers away. It surrounded the entire base. Further away was the city wall. This city wall was the first line of defense of the base. Immortal's gaze passed the distant city wall and looked even further away. Of course, with the tall city wall blocking his view, he couldn't see anything. However, right at that moment, his black pupils suddenly turned blood red. Blood demon eyes. The next moment, he saw outside the city wall in the distance. In a certain direction in the northwest, the air was filled with blood-red fog. The blood-red fog was extremely thick, like a fog after a long rain. He felt that the blood-red fog seemed to be brewing something. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He remembered that it was the direction of the dam. Such a dense corpse aura. How many zombies are there? It was said that the mutated zombies came in from the northwest sewer exit 10 days ago. It seemed that if he really wanted to go out in the future, he would have to stay far away from that place. Although he was strong, facing thousands of zombies, he could only run. Coming down from the sentry tower, Immortal's mood was slightly heavy. The thick corpse chi in the northwest made him feel slightly uneasy. The next few days were the same as last time. Wherever Immortal went, he could hear people talking about that mysterious expert. Immortal only smiled and didn't say anything. He still signed in every day. Other than that, he had to carefully and conscientiously feed the pigs and zombies. He didn't care about other people's comments. He just felt a little good in his heart. In the next 6 months, Immortal had increased the range of his telekinesis to a radius of 400 meters through continuous injections of brain cell enhancer. It can control any object under 40 kilograms within this range. It was also in this half a year that everyone in the base had been injected with the evolution agent. More and more people became corpse hunters. Cross-eyed Xiao Dou in the corpse farm had also successfully become a corpse hunter and moved out of the corpse farm. The new corpse hunter was a newbie, a girl named Happy. She had delicate features, but she didn't know how to speak. She especially liked to smile. And her smile was extremely infectious. After he arrived, both Immortal and Old Li were smiling more and more. Now there were more than 3,000 corpse hunters in the base. Their overall strength had been greatly increased. At the same time, the first level 5 corpse hunter appeared in the base. Everyone was celebrating. In order to uplift the hearts of the people, and also to motivate these corpse hunters, the higher-ups of the base decided to hold a corpse hunter competition. This made all the corpse hunters in the base extremely excited, especially those young corpse hunters. Those who obtained a ranking in the competition would not only receive the corresponding rewards, but also be worshipped by the opposite sex. Immortal just smiled and didn't say anything about this. If he participated in the competition, no one else would have anything to do. On this day, the weather was clear. The sun was shining brightly. It was the day of the competition. Immortal wasn't interested in the competition of these corpse hunters. But Old Li wanted to go, and Happy also pulled Immortal and just smiled. Immortal could only shake his head helplessly. "All right, I'm defeated by your smile." The three of them left the corpse farm and went straight to the training ground. When they arrived at the training ground, there were already mountains of people. The huge training ground was already packed with spectators. In the apocalypse, this was a rare sight. Originally, the three of them couldn't squeeze in at all. But when the surrounding people saw that they were from the corpse farm, they all covered their noses and retreated to the sides. This allowed them to walk in easily. At this time, 10 arenas had been built in the center of the training ground. On each arena, there were 2 corpse hunters fighting in pairs. Good damn, this move is amazing. That corpse hunter named Yang Kong is simply a big dark horse. The audience kept cheering for these corpse hunters or applauding. The sound was deafening. Crippled Old Li watched with great interest. He said, "Isn't it like the martial arts movies from before?" Happy looked like a curious baby. He stared at the competition on the arena. From time to time, he would smile brightly. Immortal yawned. He felt a little bored. In the eyes of others, it was a fight between experts. In his eyes, it was a fight between rookies. What was there to see? After 3 days of fighting, the top 3 rankers from level 1 to level 4 were finally determined from these 3,300 hunters. As for the level 5 corpse hunter, there was only one in the entire base, so there was naturally nothing to compare. What surprised Immortal was that the cross-eyed Little Bean actually got 3rd place in the level 2 group. Crippled Old Li sighed and said, "Little Bean is promising." Immortal didn't comment. At this time, the leader of the corpse farm happened to walk over. His face was full of excitement, so excited that his neck was red. When he saw Immortal and the other 2, he smiled and said, "The 3 of you, learn from Little Bean. We're all from the corpse farm. Why is the gap so big?" Old Li quickly nodded. Yes, the leader is right." Immortal smiled and said, "Leader, I remember that you didn't succeed in strengthening either." The leader glared at Immortal. "You don't have to say that." Then he turned around and left angrily. Old Li shook his head helplessly. "Little Immo, can't you talk less about the leader? The leader has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. It's not good for you to be like this." Immortal smiled and said, "I also have a sharp tongue." As for whether he was a soft heart, it was hard to say. In fact, he was just joking with the leader. This was also one of his daily pleasures. At this time, the competition had already ended. The leader of the base walked into the arena with a smile. After giving out awards to all the corpse hunters who had won the rankings, the leader said, "Next, it will be our highlight." Everyone was stunned. The competition had already ended, and the awards had already been given out. Why was there still a highlight? The leader waited for everyone to quiet down and said with a smile, "Next, I will formally introduce the mysterious powerhouse of our base to everyone." Wow! When the people present heard the words, "mysterious powerhouse," there was an uproar. Was that person finally going to show up? Immortal was slightly stunned. Was he exposed? Chapter 18. At the end of the competition, the base chief walked up to the center of the arena. He was a man in his 50s with white hair. He had a kind smile on his face. He always gave people a very kind feeling. Before the apocalypse, he was a major general in the army. From the establishment to the operation of the entire base, he took credit for it. It could be said that without him, there would be no base today. Therefore, when the base chief went up to the stage, there was a burst of cheers from the audience. The chief waited for the cheers and applause to die down before he said with a smile, "I believe that everyone has gained a lot from this competition, especially for the hunters who got the ranking. Congratulations! You are the hope of the base, the hope of the continuation of human civilization. I hope that you can be brave enough to challenge. Only by daring to challenge can you become stronger." Everyone nodded. The words of the base chief were always so convincing. The chief then changed the topic. He said, "Now, as the winners, you will have the chance to challenge the mysterious powerhouse." Wow! As soon as he said that, there was an uproar. The mysterious powerhouse. Is he going to appear? Oh my God, he's finally going to appear. It's been 4 years. From the first time he appeared in the gym, I've been looking forward to his appearance. I can finally see him today. He killed the mutated zombies in the laboratory and then killed thousands of zombies with one move. I've been looking forward to seeing him. Today, I can finally fulfill my wish. Get out of my way, don't stop me. I want to worship him, worship him. Crippled old Li next to Immortal shook his head and sighed. It's been 4 years, he's finally going to appear. On the other side, Happy couldn't say anything. However, the burning gaze in her eyes vividly expressed her excitement. Immortal was a little confused. Was he going to be exposed? He had hidden it very well. Resources were scarce in the apocalypse. The base's cameras were basically installed in the laboratory and on the wall of the first line of defense. There were few cameras in other places. How could he be discovered like this? Everyone raised their heads in anticipation. The base chief swept his gaze across everyone. Finally, he slowly looked at Immortal. With an expectant look on his face, he said, "Now, let's welcome the mysterious powerhouse." Immortal sighed secretly. Forget it. Since he couldn't hide, he wouldn't pretend. It was a showdown. Thinking of this, Immortal's body moved slightly. He planned to go on stage. But at this moment, cries of surprise came from not far away. "Look, that person, how is this possible? Unbelievable, unbelievable." Immortal looked at these people in confusion. What kind of nonsense are these people talking about? Then he followed their gazes. He turned his head and looked behind him. Behind him was a beautiful woman with a ponytail. It actually slowly rose into the air. Without any external force, she actually floated into the air. When she was 5 meters above the ground, she stopped rising. Then he slowly floated to the arena. Around the arena, everyone who saw this scene was extremely shocked. Old Li was so surprised that he couldn't stop drooling. It shone brightly under the sunlight, like a string of crystals. By the side, Happy also widened his beautiful eyes. His eyes were filled with disbelief. When Immortal saw the ponytailed woman floating in the air, he suddenly understood. So he was a psychic. Then he shook his head slightly. In fact, he had tried to use his psychokinesis to float and fly. But this kind of flying method was extremely slow, not as fast as walking. The height was only a few meters. And it also consumed a lot of psychokinesis. Other than showing off, there was no other practical purpose. But at this time, he was not exposed, so he was relieved. But he didn't expect that someone would dare to pretend to be him. In the air, the ponytailed woman floated above the arena. She slowly landed, like a fairy from the 9th heaven descending to the mortal world. After landing, her eyelids drooped. Like a fairy, she looked down at all the living beings below the arena. All the living beings clicked their tongues in amazement. This is the mysterious powerhouse? So it's a woman. So beautiful. The chief said with a smile. This is the mysterious powerhouse I was talking about. As for how strong she is, you zombie hunters who just got a ranking will know after you try. The zombie hunters who got a ranking all looked at each other. No one dared to go up. Who dared to go up? An existence that could kill thousands of zombies with one move. Would they dare to challenge? Wouldn't that be asking for humiliation? Seeing that no one dared to challenge, the ponytailed woman had a disdainful smile on her face. She said to the chief next to her, "Chief, why don't we forget about it?" At this time, a zombie hunter named Yang Kong looked at the ponytailed woman with a disdainful expression. He frowned slightly. He was the man who was saved by Immortal. Because he took Immortal's recovery potion, he grew very fast after becoming a zombie hunter. In just half a year, he had grown to a level 4 zombie hunter. He was regarded as a genius with great talent. When he was kicked a few times by the mutated zombie and his hands and feet were broken, his consciousness was about to blur. But he could still barely see the mysterious powerhouse who saved his family. It was definitely not a woman. And later, his wife and daughter also said that the voice of the mysterious powerhouse was obviously a man. At this time, this woman ran out and pretended to be the mysterious powerhouse. This made him somewhat puzzled and somewhat indignant. She solved the zombie crisis twice and saved 100,000 people in the entire base twice. Such a contribution was definitely greater than the sky. Now this woman wanted to take the credit of the mysterious powerhouse? How could he allow such a thing to happen? Thinking of this, Yang Kong stepped forward. "Let me try." Seeing this, the ponytailed woman sneered. "You alone?" Then he pointed his finger at the 12 ranked hunters, including Yang Kong, through the air. She said calmly, "Come together." His arrogance was evident in his every movement. Yang Kong was already unhappy with the ponytailed woman. At this time, seeing her arrogant behavior, he was even more unhappy. With a leap, he jumped into the ring. The other 11 hunters looked at each other one by one. Then they followed to the ring. They didn't dare to challenge this mysterious powerhouse. The mysterious powerhouse killed thousands of zombies in seconds without even moving a finger. How could they deal with it? But at this time, Yang Kong had already gone up. If they didn't go up, wouldn't they be too cowardly? And even if they lost to the mysterious powerhouse, it wouldn't be shameful. The crowd below the ring saw the dozen or so hunters coming to the ring. One by one, they were interested. I can finally see the mysterious powerhouse in action with my own eyes. Immortal was also slightly interested. Since she dared to pretend to be him, she must have some ability. And she knew that the real mysterious powerhouse was hiding in the base. And she dared to pretend to be him in front of so many people. There must be something wrong. The ponytailed woman saw the 12 hunters coming to the ring. Her eyes were full of disdain. She said calmly, "I'll let you go first." Before her voice died away, Yang Kong had already roared. He strode toward the ponytailed woman. Seeing this, the rest of the people frowned slightly. Yang Kong was usually very calm. Why couldn't he suppress his anger when he saw a woman today? After all, this was not an ordinary woman. This was the mysterious powerhouse. But since Yang Kong had already gone up, they naturally couldn't back down. They said one after another, "Sorry." Then the dozen or so people jumped toward the ponytailed woman at the same time. The ponytailed woman smiled faintly. In an instant, 12 flying knives appeared in her sleeves. However, these 12 flying knives didn't shoot out. Instead, they suddenly floated out of thin air. Then, it circled around her body and kept flying. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 12 flying knives formed a shield of light around her body. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. The mysterious powerhouse's means are indeed mysterious and unpredictable. Could this be the psychokinesis mentioned in novels? Chapter 19. The 12 flying daggers circled around Sister Ponytail. The knife light was cold, and the cold wind was rustling. It looked very gorgeous. The dozen or so corpse hunters who had won the rankings suddenly stopped rushing forward. No one dared to get closer. What a joke! Miss Ponytail was surrounded by the knife light. Wouldn't it be suicide to rush in? When Immortal saw this, his eyes lit up. Why didn't he think of this move before? With the strength of his telekinesis, He would be 100 times more handsome than Miss Ponytail if he used this move. At this moment, Yang Kong frowned. He pulled out a military knife from his waist. Then he gritted his teeth and rushed toward Miss Ponytail. Although Miss Ponytail's knife light was powerful and aggressive. But how could he allow others to take the credit of the mysterious powerhouse? Even if he was seriously injured, he would expose this woman. When the other corpse hunters saw this, they also pulled out their weapons. There were knives, swords, and axes. Miss Ponytail snorted coldly. With a thought, the 12 flying knives flew toward Yang Kong first. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Like 12 locusts, they swept past Yang Kang's body in an instant. 12 bloody wounds appeared on Yang Kang's body. In particular, there was a bloody wound that was less than 2 centimeters away from his neck. If it was a little higher, he would probably be lying down at this time. Whoosh 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 whoosh, the 12 flying knives continued to sweep toward the other people. The rest of the corpse hunters also had bloody wounds on their bodies. In just 10 seconds, the 12 people's clothes were all torn. Their upper bodies were covered with blood-red wounds. They couldn't move forward anymore. Yang Kong frowned. Everyone else's faces were deathly pale. They didn't dare to move forward even a step. Miss Ponytail shook her head in disdain. With a thought, the 12 flying knives were taken back. She said to the chief next to her, "Chief, I said earlier that they are no match for her." When the audience saw this, they applauded thunderously. They all cheered. The mysterious powerhouse is really powerful. I believe that this is only the tip of the iceberg of her strength. Don't talk. You're disturbing my worship. Old Li, who was beside Mo Shi, wiped off his saliva. He said, "Hey little Mo, is the mysterious expert powerful?" Mo Shi was non-committal. Happy's eyes were filled with envy and admiration. In the arena, the base chief smiled and said, "That's right. Is there anyone else who wants to try?" Then, his gaze swept across the faces of the people below the ring. Below the arena, there was no sound. Under such circumstances, who would dare to go up? Sister Ponytail had already retracted her throwing knife. His face was full of disdain. Seeing that no one dared to challenge him again, he chuckled twice and said, "Who else?" Below the stage, there was silence. No one dared to respond, let alone challenge him. Seeing that no one spoke, the base chief introduced with a smile. This mysterious expert is not the hunter that everyone guessed. Psychokinesis. Whoosh, the audience was in an uproar. He really is a psychic. Oh my God, psychokinesis actually exists in the world. I've long said that the mysterious expert must have some kind of psychokinesis ability. Otherwise, how could he kill thousands of zombies in an instant without even moving his fingers? The base chief continued. She had been injected with an enhancer a long time ago. After the injection, her body did not become stronger. But her brain was strengthened to the point that it was far beyond the reach of ordinary people. She can control objects out of thin air. We call this kind of person psychokinesis. According to the data from the laboratory, as long as you have a second injection of the enhancer, there is a certain chance that you can become psychokinesis. Although the probability is very small, I think we should try. Therefore, in the next 6 months, the base will do our best to let everyone undergo the second round of injections. I hope that there will be others who can become psychokinesis. When he said that, everyone below the stage was excited. Everyone could become psychokinesis. He wanted to become a psychic like the mysterious master. How could they not be excited? Sister Ponytail seemed to be a little impatient at that moment. "Sir, there is no one in the base who can fight. I'll go back first." As she said that, she did not wait for the base chief to answer. She held her head high and puffed out her chest. She strode down the stage and left the training ground as if no one was around. Everyone only saw the ponytail behind her swaying vigorously. On the stage, Yang Kong frowned. He wanted to expose that woman in front of everyone. But he had no evidence to prove it. Occasionally, there would be others who were dissatisfied. Although this mysterious expert was strong, she was too arrogant. But most people were still full of admiration for her. In their opinion, the strong had their own personalities. Her strength had already reached such a heaven-defying level. Wasn't it normal to be arrogant? Immortal looked at the woman's back as she strode away with her ponytail swaying. He was a little unhappy in his heart. This woman seemed to have come specifically to ruin his reputation. No matter how strong a person was, she would not mindlessly say something like, "There is no one who can fight," in front of everyone. She was not a brainless villain. Thinking of this, Immortal's psychokinesis quietly spread out. It covered Miss Ponytail, who had already walked 300 meters away. Miss Ponytail, who was holding her head high and swinging her ponytail. Suddenly, her expression froze. In the next moment, her expression changed drastically. She only felt as if there was a terrifying pressure pressing down on her. Like a mountain. It was as if she was facing a tsunami, or as if she was facing a sandstorm. Under this vast and huge pressure, her psychokinesis almost collapsed in an instant. Her face was as pale as paper. Cold sweat poured down from her forehead. Her entire body was trembling involuntarily. At this time, the ponytail was no longer swinging. Instead, it was trembling with her body. In front of this vast sea of psychokinesis that was as bright as the sun. Her psychokinesis was just a drop in the ocean, a lonely firefly. Under this terrifying pressure, she had an impulse. She immediately wanted to turn around and confess to everyone. However, when she wanted to move, she found that she was actually suppressed by that psychokinesis. She couldn't even move a step. This made her look even more shocked. Her psychokinesis could only control objects that were less than 10 kilograms. However, this enormous and earth-shattering power of telekinesis could even suppress her body. How strong was this psychokinesis? A few seconds later, that psychokinesis was instantly withdrawn. Miss Ponytail felt the pressure on her body suddenly lighten. She turned her head and looked at the training ground with some fear. However, there were tens of thousands of people around the training ground. She couldn't see who it was at all. In her fear, she wanted to turn around immediately, confess to everyone that she was just pretending to be a mysterious strong man. But when her gaze fell on the arena, the base chief who was speaking with confidence, she hesitated again. Finally, she gritted her teeth and turned around to leave. Chapter 20. The reason why Immortal used his psychokinesis to warn the woman. Firstly, it was to warn the woman. You can pretend to be me, but don't ruin my reputation. Secondly, it was to test his psychokinesis. Ever since he had psychokinesis, Immortal had always been alone. There was no other reference. Today, he finally had a reference. Naturally, he had to test how strong his psychokinesis was. However, when he tried, it was lonely. Immortal felt that using psychokinesis to suppress this woman was as easy as suppressing an ordinary person. Naturally, he couldn't test how strong his psychokinesis was. Moreover, his psychokinesis couldn't suppress the woman to the point where she couldn't move at all. But perhaps the woman was terrified to the extreme. He only used his psychokinesis to casually suppress her. That woman couldn't even take a step forward. Sigh, he shook his head. He sighed gloomily. Being invincible was really lonely. Seeing Immortal sigh, Oldly patted him on the shoulder. Don't be discouraged. Maybe the next time you get an injection, you can also become a psychokinesis. When the time comes, you have to learn from the mysterious powerhouse. Immortal smiled as if he was joking. Why can't she learn from me? Crippled Oldly hurriedly looked around. He advised in a low voice. Little Immo, you can't say such things. If you anger that mysterious powerhouse, you'll be in big trouble. Half an hour later, everyone slowly dispersed while discussing the mysterious powerhouse. Immortal, Oldly, and Happy also returned to the corpse farm. At the same time, in the base chief's office. The base chief said to Miss Ponytail, "You acted well just now." Miss Ponytail shook her head. She said, "Chief, I don't want to act anymore." The chief obviously didn't expect this. Didn't we agree before? You have to act until the mysterious powerhouse is forced out. Miss Ponytail shook her head and asked, "Chief, why do you have to force him out?" The chief laughed bitterly. As the chief, I have to consider everything from the chief's perspective. That mysterious powerhouse has such powerful strength, but he hasn't shown himself. It's a potential threat to the entire base. So I have to force him out and talk to him. I have to make sure he means no harm. Miss Ponytail shook her head. If he didn't have any ill intentions, wouldn't our actions have angered him? If he had any ill intentions, he would have done it long ago. There's no need to hide in the base for 5 years. The bureau chief laughed bitterly again. What you said is all speculation. As the chief of the base, I want to see the truth. After that, the base chief seemed to be a little tired. He leaned back in his chair and said slowly, I'm responsible for the safety of 100,000 people in the base. Sister Ponytail felt a little heartache when she saw this. He said, Uncle, I understand. But then he shook his head. But I can't continue acting. Why? The base chief frowned slightly. The ponytailed girl said, Just now, the mysterious expert warned me. Hearing this, the base chief immediately leaned forward. He was pleasantly surprised. You saw him? The ponytail girl shook her head and said, I can sense that he was at the training ground at that time. He didn't appear. But at that time, I was already more than 300 meters away from the training ground, but he used his psychokinesis to suppress me so that I couldn't move at all. My psychokinesis is nothing compared to his. The base chief was surprised. In that case, the range of his psychokinesis is at least 300 meters in radius. In other words, he's a level 3 psychokinesis. The ponytail girl nodded, then shook her head. I'm sure that it's far more than 300 meters. He must be in existence that far surpasses level 3 psychokinesis. The base chief was even more surprised when he heard this. According to the data analysis in the laboratory, after being injected with the enhancer, some people's bodies would be strengthened and become zombie hunters. Very few people's brains would be strengthened and become psychokinesis. But it was impossible for someone to be both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis. But from the mysterious expert's performance, he obviously did it. He was both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis. This made the base chief fall into deep thought. How on earth did he do it? If the mysterious expert shared his method with everyone, would there be others who could become both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis like him? Thinking of this, he raised his head. He said seriously, You have to keep up the act. Uncle, the ponytail girl still wanted to say something, but the base chief waved his hand and interrupted her. We have to force him out. I have to have a good talk with him. On behalf of 100,000 people in the base, I beg you. The base chief said solemnly. The ponytail girl opened her mouth. In the end, she couldn't refuse. But if the mysterious expert really shows up, please help me explain it clearly. The base chief smiled again. He said, Of course. Xiao Wei, are you still worried about your uncle? So in the following days, the ponytail girl frequently went to various occasions as the mysterious expert. She became the star of the entire base. Most of the people in the base worshipped her. Wherever she went, there would be cheers and applause. She would occasionally show her strength. This made those people even more crazy. Mo sure didn't care. Ever since he gave the ponytail girl a small warning that day, he didn't make a move again. Since this woman wanted to act, then let her act. And with her as a shield, the people in the base would no longer guess who the mysterious expert was. This was a good thing for him. Then the days returned to normal. Mo sure still signed in raised pigs and fed zombies every day. Happy was a newbie, so she was always not very nimble when doing work. The base chief asked Emosure to take care of Happy. Emosure often went to help her. She would always smile gratefully for Emosure's help. Looking at her bright and innocent smile, Emosure often felt that it was a pity. Such a smiling girl actually didn't know how to speak. As for the base, after the martial arts competition, a second round of injections was carried out. No one in the zombie farm became a psychokinesis again. This made the base chief feel disappointed for a long time. And in the entire base, this round of injections produced 13 psychokinesis. Now there were more than 3,000 zombie hunters in the base, and 13 psychokinesis. It could be said that they had a strong army. So the base chief ordered these zombie hunters and psychokinesis to clean up the zombies around the base. With the cooperation of the powerful zombie hunters and psychokinesis, this team of more than 3,000 people could be said to be invincible. Just like this, time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years had passed. Through these 5 years of continuous strengthening, Immortal's telekinesis could reach a range of 500 meters. He could control objects within 50 kilograms. According to the base's classification of psychokinesis, he had already reached level 5 psychokinesis. Chapter 21. 5 years. The first level 7 zombie hunter had appeared in the base. At the same time, the base laboratory conducted a lot of research on psychokinesis. They divided psychokinesis into levels according to the range of telekinesis. Every 100 meters increase in telekinesis range was considered a level increase. The strongest psychokinesis in the base was that Miss Ponytail. Her telekinesis could already spread out more than 200 meters. That was level 2 psychokinesis. More than 3,000 zombie hunters in the base formed a zombie hunter group. Miss Ponytail became the group leader as everyone expected. And ever since she was warned by Immortal, she didn't do anything out of line. Instead, she worked hard to be a good group leader. As for Immortal, through the continuous injection of cell enhancers for the past 5 years, his telekinesis had reached a radius of 500 meters. He could control objects under 50 kilograms. Obviously, he was already level 5 psychokinesis. He was both the ceiling of the zombie hunters and the number 1 in psychokinesis. This feeling made Immortal very happy. However, Immortal vaguely felt that his body had been strengthened to the peak after 5 years. Recently, he always felt that he could break through at any time. This made him quite happy. On this day, after Immortal finished feeding the zombies, he strolled out of the zombie farm again. When he passed by the laboratory, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." The system, like a girlfriend in love, replied instantly frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, X2 virus. Immortal was slightly puzzled. He had never signed in the X2 virus before. What was the use of this thing? With a thought, he checked the system backpack. He saw that in the system backpack, there was already a gun-type syringe. On the syringe, there was a small transparent test tube-like bottle. In the small bottle, there was a blood-red liquid. X2 virus, a mutated strain of virus X. After injection, it can strengthen the host's cells and help the host break through their limits. Hearing this, Immortal was ecstatic. He was finally going to break through. 7 years ago, he had already become a level 10 zombie hunter. Now, after 7 years, the other zombie hunters were about to catch up. This made him a little depressed. And now, he was finally about to break through again. He quickly returned to the corpse farm. He locked himself in his room. Then he took out a syringe. Although it wasn't the first time he had injected it, this time he was so excited that his arm trembled slightly. He took a few deep breaths. After calming down a little, he injected the blood-red X2 virus into his left arm. Meanwhile, a rare phenomenon appeared in his mind once again. Just like the first injection, a gigantic dragon phantom that was several hundred meters long flapped its gigantic wings as it flew across the sky. However, this time, the dragon's shadow seemed to be more solid than before. Roar! A dragon's roar shook all the beasts. Immortal could feel that the terrifying Long Wei was pressing down on him so much that he didn't even dare to raise his head. The phantom dragon circled twice in the air. In the next moment, he suddenly retracted his wings. Like a meteorite, it swooped down towards him. Immortal only felt that the sky seemed to have darkened a lot under the shadow of the giant dragon. The giant dragon's cave-like mouth opened and instantly swallowed Immortal. In the next moment, Immortal suddenly quivered. He opened his eyes. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. His hands and feet were cold. Although it wasn't the first time he had seen such a phenomenon. Every time, it was as if he had experienced it personally. Gulp. He swallowed his saliva. Immortal smiled bitterly. Did he have to make such a big commotion every time? Could he still break through happily? At this moment, he felt that his body was rapidly heating up and gradually becoming hot. Every cell in his body was growing wildly like weeds after a heavy rain. Every blood vessel in his body seemed to be alive. It continued to extend. Every muscle was filled with explosive strength. Every bone in his body was making cracking sounds. Immortal's eyes were filled with excitement. He was about to break through. Sure enough, in just 5 minutes, his entire body had undergone a qualitative change. His slightly thin body actually looked a little sturdy at this moment. He felt that every move of his would carry an incomparably powerful force. He had to carefully adapt to this newly increased strength. Otherwise, he would accidentally crush the cup and collapse the chair. At this moment, the system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face breaking through the limit, unlocking the Titan Dragon Claw on the left arm. Before he could finish his sentence, his left arm began to change. Just like his right arm before, it became 3 times thicker. It also grew black scales the size of a fingernail. His left hand also turned into a sharp dragon claw. Immortal was delighted. Finally, the dragon claw on his left arm was unlocked. If both arms were dragon claws, how powerful would that be? However, the changes in his body didn't stop. The skin on his right hand quickly protruded. The bones in his hand grew rapidly. When the bones pierced the skin, he was surprised to find that the bones were actually black. It was as if they were made of steel. Moreover, the black bones continued to grow longer. A moment later, it became a 3-meter-long black spear that looked like a javelin. The spear was completely black and emitted a black metallic luster. The tip of the spear was extremely sharp. It seemed to be able to easily pierce through iron and stone. After the black spear was formed, it left his hand bone. It became an independent existence. He could throw the spear out at any time. Immortal held the cold spear, but he felt as if his mind was connected. After all, this was flesh that fell from his body, bones. System, what is this? The system replied instantly, frowny face, sky-killing dragon spear. After a zombie hunter broke through the limit, he evolved into a hunter. Every hunter can condense a bone spur from their right hand. During battle, the bone spur can be released silently and can pierce through iron and stone. The host has the Titan Dragon gene, so what was born was not a bone spur, but a sky-killing dragon spear. Immortal heard this explanation and felt very comfortable. Sky-killing dragon spear. Just by hearing this name, it was very Chunibyu. With a thought, the sky-killing dragon spear began to shrink rapidly and finally merged into his right hand. The next moment, his right hand changed again. The skin on his right hand squirmed rapidly, as if something was going to come out. After a while, his right arm slowly extended. It was about 3 meters long. His right hand slowly turned into a sharp axe blade. The axe blade was more than 2 meters wide. A cold light flashed on it, terrifying one's soul. The system appeared at the right time and explained, frowny face. After a zombie hunter breaks through and becomes a hunter, a part of the genes in their body will mutate. Other than the bone spur, they can also evolve into a weapon called a genetic weapon. Different genetic weapons have different powers. Immortal heard this and was overjoyed. It turned out that after breaking through and becoming a hunter, he would obtain such a powerful ability. No wonder it was so difficult to break through and become a hunter. With a thought, his right arm quickly returned to its original state. At this moment, his attributes suddenly appeared in his mind. Name, Immortal. Level 1 Hunter, Level 5 Psychokinesis. Evolution path, Titan Dragon. His attributes interface was not as long as the main characters of other novels he read before. It made people feel that it was just a word count. His attributes interface was simple and clear. After a while, after calming down his excitement, Immortal took out a dark green potion from his backpack. Once again, he injected it into his left arm. Chapter 22. Immortal had just broken through when he took out another syringe. He injected it into his left arm. This was the Titan Dragon gene enhancer that he had saved up previously. 7 years ago, his body had already reached its limit. Injecting the Titan Dragon gene enhancer was no longer effective. But after he signed in, he would still often receive the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. So he stored these extra enhancers. About 100 days a year, he could sign in the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. In 7 years, he had saved up more than 700 of them. In addition to his personal warehouse, his system backpack was also filled to the brim. Soon, this enhancer was injected. He could feel some kind of change in his body. Although this change wasn't as big as before, it still proved that this gene enhancer was still effective. He immediately took out a second syringe. Next, the third, fourth, fifth. More than an hour later, he injected all the more than 50 gene enhancers in his system backpack. Then he made a trip to the warehouse. He moved the gene enhancers back from his personal warehouse. He continued to inject. For more than half a day, Immortal ran back and forth to the warehouse 10 times. Finally, he moved all the gene enhancers back and injected them into his body. After he injected the last gene enhancer, his body once again felt that boiling hot feeling. Immortal was secretly delighted. This was a sign that he was about to level up. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, his body temperature slowly dropped. But the feeling of being full of power in his body slowly rose. At this moment, Immortal's attribute interface appeared in his mind again. Name: Immortal, level 2 Hunter, level 5 Psychokinesis, evolution path, Titan Dragon. Phew! Immortal let out a long breath. He was a level 2 hunter. He was finally a lot ahead of the hunters in the base. In the past 7 years, his level had been stagnant. Seeing that level 5, level 6, and even level 7 hunters had appeared in the base, he was naturally anxious. If he had the sign-in system, he would still be caught up by these people. That would be King awkward. Fortunately, he had finally broken through. And in one day, he had leveled up twice. He was a level 2 hunter and a level 5 psychokinesis. Even if there were more than 3,000 hunters and 13 psychics in the base, they would not be enough to deal with him. One move was enough to suppress him. However, Immortal still did not intend to reveal his true strength. He had a feeling that someone in the base was trying to force him to show himself. He wasn't afraid, he just found it troublesome. He was signing in at the zombie farm every day, feeding the pigs and zombies, living a carefree life. There was no need to stir up so much trouble. Furthermore, his blood demon eyes would often observe that the northwest was filled with corpse chi. He didn't know how many zombies were there. According to the current style of the base, if they were exposed, they would definitely send him there to clean up the zombies. What a joke, it was so dangerous outside. Unless he became invincible, he wouldn't go out. However, 9 out of 10 things in the world did not go as one wished. He didn't want to go out, but God didn't let him. On this day, the leader of the corpse farm called Immortal, oldly and happy to his office. He said, "The hunters have already cleaned up most of the zombies around the base. There are tens of thousands of zombies gathered at the dam in the northwest. The leader of the base has given the order to go there tomorrow to encircle and eliminate the zombies. You guys should go as well." The 3 of them looked at each other when they heard this. Immortal laughed dryly and said, "Leader, encircling and eliminating the zombies is a matter for the hunters and psychokinesis. Why should we blindly get involved?" The leader glared at Immortal. "The lab wants to capture some fresh zombie samples, but I'm afraid that we don't have enough manpower. They want us to send a few people over to help." Immortal and happy, "You two can go." Immortal smiled bitterly in his heart when he heard this. What he was afraid of really happened. And this time, they were going to the dam filled with corpse chi. He didn't know what dangers were hidden there. The leader said again, "Don't worry, you're just going to put in some effort. There's no need for you to fight the zombies. Besides, with your small physiques, you'll just be sending yourselves to your deaths if you fight the zombies." Immortal shook his head in resignation. "Leader, if I don't come back this time, don't raise your head when you go to the toilet at night." The leader glared at Immortal and scolded, "Get lost, go feed your pigs. Don't be so rude." Immortal chuckled and was about to leave. At that moment, the leader seemed to have suddenly remembered something. He called out to Immortal, He sized Emoshur up from head to toe and asked, "What's the matter?" "Emoshur, you've been here for 8 or 9 years, right?" Emoshur didn't know what the leader meant, so he answered, 10 years. The leader was puzzled. "It's been 10 years and I've aged a lot. Old Lee's back is a little hunched, and Happy has grown into a woman in her 20s. Why don't you look the same? You still look like you're in your 20s. Emoshur touched his face and said, "Maybe it's because I took good care of myself." The leader waved his hand and scolded, "Get lost, you're always so rude." The next morning, Emoshur had just woken up. The leader had already come to the zombie farm to hurry them up. Emoshur and Happy hurriedly packed up and were about to walk out of the zombie farm. Old Lee sent them to the door and said to Emoshur and Happy, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of your zombies." Emoshur was a little speechless when he heard that. Old Lee wanted to send them to the entrance of the laboratory. But the leader thought that his legs were not agile enough, so he waved his hand and said, "All right, Old Lee, I gave you a balloon and you want to be." At this point, he realized that Happy was beside him. He didn't say the rest of his words. Of course, Emoshur and Old Lee had already imagined it. Then, Emoshur and Happy arrived at the entrance of the laboratory. Before they left, the leader pulled a laboratory researcher to the side. He nodded and bowed, "Young man, please take good care of the 2 people in the zombie farm. They're not very smart, and they've never left the base. Please." The researcher waved his hand impatiently, all right, I got it." These words were naturally heard by Emoshur. His heart warmed slightly, although the leader often scolded them. But just as Old Lee said, he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. 8:30 in the morning. Emoshur and Happy followed the 5 researchers in the laboratory and passed through the second line of defense of the base. They passed through a large wheat field and arrived at the first line of defense. The more than 3,000 zombie hunters and 13 psychokinesis also arrived one after another. 9 o'clock sharp. The iron gate on the city wall slowly opened. A ray of sunlight fell at Emoshur's feet. Then, the ray of sunlight slowly expanded. In the end, it enveloped a large number of zombie hunters nearby. Phew! Emoshur looked at the blue sky outside the gate and let out a breath of turbid air. It had been 10 years, and he was finally going to step out of the base for the first time. Chapter 23. Early in the morning. It was accompanied by creaking sounds. The gate of the base's city wall slowly opened. This city wall was built in ancient times. 1,000 years ago, it was used to resist the invasion of foreign races. Now, it protected people from the invasion of zombies. The ancestors who built the city wall 1,000 years ago would never have thought that the city wall they built would one day resist not foreign races but zombies. Emoshur and Happy slowly walked out of the gate with more than 3,000 zombie hunters. Happy was like a curious baby. Like a child, he looked around and looked around. He explored this unfamiliar world. Emoshur also looked outside. Outside the city wall, there was an empty area that had been cleared out, surrounding the entire base. This was to have a better view. If zombies appeared in the open area, they would be able to discover them earlier. The width of this open area was about 1 kilometer. After walking out of this 1 kilometer open area, they entered the lush wilderness. Although it was called the wilderness, it was actually an abandoned city. There had been no traces of humans for more than 10 years, and plants had already occupied this place. Even the weeds on the former road were now half the height of a person. From time to time, there would be abandoned cars on the road, parked in disorder. Some of the cars even had grass growing in them. The residential areas, shopping malls, and amusement parks on both sides of the road were now covered in green grass. From a distance, this was a completely green world. They left the city. They walked straight along a road. In the past few years, the zombie hunters had become stronger and stronger. They had already killed all the zombies nearby. There was no danger here at the moment. Therefore, these zombie hunters and psychokinesis were all talking and laughing. The laboratory researchers around Emoshur were all very nervous because it was their first time leaving the base. Emoshur, on the other hand, was calm. Although he had always been a coward. Since he was out, he would face it calmly. Anyway, with his current strength, although he was not invincible in the world, he was definitely a top-notch expert. Taking 10,000 steps back, he could now cross 100 meters with one step. With this speed, even if he could not win, he could always run away. Therefore, he had nothing to worry about. In the afternoon, they finally arrived at their destination. In front of them was a bridge that spanned the valley. The bridge had long been broken. It was like an old man in his twilight years, full of vicissitudes, standing in the wilderness. Below the bridge was the dam. Looking down from the bridge, one could vaguely see it. Thousands of zombies were wandering around the dam like wandering ghosts. When the hunters saw the zombies, they were all very excited. He rubbed his palms together. Finally, there's work to do. I haven't killed zombies for dozens of days. My hands are itching. Immortal frowned when he saw the zombies. He had used the blood demon's eye to see it. Although there were thousands of zombies here, it was obviously not enough for the zombie aura to fill the air. But now, the top of the dam was shrouded in blood-red corpse chi. The density of the corpse aura was like the thick fog after a long rain. There was definitely something fishy about this place. His pupils turned blood-red once again. The corpse chi was still lingering around the dam, as if it was going to cover the sky. He withdrew the blood demon's eye, feeling slightly uneasy. The hunters had left the road and were heading towards the dam. He said to the zombie hunter next to him, "It's best if we don't go down." The hunter was a girl in her 20s. But she had short, steel-like hair. Seeing that the hunters had gone down, there was a clear desire in her eyes. She said impatiently to Immortal, "As a man, aren't you too cowardly? If it wasn't to protect you, I would have gone down to kill the zombies. Now, when we go down, the zombies will have been cleaned up by them. Don't dawdle, let's go." Immortal didn't say anything more. He walked down with them. When they were halfway down the slope, there were already roars and shouts of killing below. Those hunters killed the zombies as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. After killing the zombies, many of the hunters kicked the zombies' bodies directly into the dam. Plop, plop, in the dam, waves of blood that were as tall as a person kept splashing up. After more than 10 minutes, the entire water surface had turned blood red. When Immortal and the others came to the dam, there were already thousands of zombie corpses on the water surface, bobbing up and down in the bloody water. Immortal and the others walked forward slowly. The surroundings were filled with the smell of blood and corpses. The researchers all felt that their legs were weak. Even if they were used to seeing zombies, in the face of such a hellish scene, they were already scared out of their wits. Happy couldn't help but hide behind Immortal and grab Immortal's arm tightly. Immortal also frowned slightly. Then he patted Happy's arm gently to comfort him. The short-haired female corpse hunter next to him kept sighing. From time to time, she complained, "If it wasn't for you, I would have killed countless zombies by now." Immortal just smiled faintly and didn't say anything. After more than 20 minutes, the zombies were almost cleaned up. There were only about 50 zombies left, and they were strung together by a few hunters with ropes. They pulled them over. Only then did the researchers begin to pick fresh zombie samples with trembling hands. Several hunters pressed down the selected sample zombies. Immortal and Happy put on special gloves and braces for these zombies to prevent them from scratching and biting humans. In the end, they chose more than 30 zombies with intact hands and feet and no obvious wounds on their bodies. After putting on the gloves and braces for these zombies, the researchers were obviously relieved. When the short-haired girl saw that there were more than 20 zombies left, she immediately became excited. She rolled up her sleeves. She spat into her hands and rubbed them. "The rest are all mine." As she spoke, she pulled out a short knife from her waist. Then he slashed at one of the zombies. Crack, crack. She cut down the 20 zombies as if she was cutting melons and vegetables. Then she kicked them one by one into the dam. She watched as the zombies splashed blood as high as a person in the water. The short-haired girl was as excited as a child playing with firecrackers during the New Year. At this time, it was already 6 o'clock in the evening. In less than 2 hours, it would be dark. Immortal originally thought that they were going to camp by the dam. But he didn't expect the ponytailed leader of the hunter group to give an order. Just now, a hunter saw zombies in the residential area to the east. While it's not dark yet, let's clean up the zombies in the residential area and see if there are any resources in the residential area that can be used. She was now a level 2 psychokinesis, the strongest existence in the entire hunter group. Under her leadership, the hunter group could be said to be invincible in the past few years. Everyone was very convinced by her. Even those level 7 zombie hunters followed her lead. Moreover, these hunters had already killed their way to the top. While the sky was not dark yet, everyone wanted to kill more zombies. At this time, the leader gave the order, so they naturally rushed to the residential area to the east of the dam to search. However, no one expected that. When they went, something big happened. Chapter 24. The setting sun was like blood, dyeing the grassy wilderness blood red. The blood-red water surface and the blood-red setting sun reflected each other. Thousands of corpses floated on the water surface. The 3,000 members of the hunter group had already gone to the residential area east of the dam. Immortal, Happy, and the researchers stayed by the dam. The short-haired girl was also with them. The surroundings were quiet, so quiet that it made people panic. The researchers were on tenterhooks in such an environment. The short-haired girl, on the other hand, looked carefree. She said, "Don't worry, the zombies nearby have just been cleared. What danger can there be?" As she said that, she comfortably hid on the slope next to her. With her words, the researchers felt a little more at ease. With a thought, Immortal took out the virtual sentry tower. The virtual sentry tower looked similar to a real sentry tower. It was just transparent. It was invisible and intangible. Except for Immortal, no one could feel it. Immortal connected his mental power to the virtual sentry tower. It was as if he had really climbed up a sentry tower and looked around. Everything within a 5-kilometer radius immediately appeared in his mind. The lake nearby, the broken bridge in the distance, the road, and so on were exactly the same. Moreover, the sentry tower also had a warning function. Once danger approached, the virtual sentry tower would immediately remind him. A moment later, a researcher looked at the water surface in the distance. He said to another researcher, "Did you notice anything wrong?" The researcher glanced at the blood-red water surface. He shook his head and asked, "What did you find?" The researcher from before replied, "Why do I feel that there are fewer corpses floating on the water than before?" The others glanced at the water surface. They all shook their heads. They didn't feel that there were fewer corpses. The short-haired girl didn't even raise her head and said, "You're thinking too much." The researcher nodded. "Maybe I'm thinking too much." However, more than 10 minutes later, the researcher spoke again. "I still feel that there are fewer zombies." Everyone heard this and looked at the water surface. This time, everyone saw that something was wrong. They saw that at least 1/5 of the zombies floating on the water surface had disappeared. This made the researchers a little flustered. "What's going on? It's really a lot less." The short-haired girl raised her head and took a look. He said, "The density of these zombies' flesh is about the same as water. It's normal for them to float up and down in the water." Just as she finished speaking, a voice rang out. On the water surface in the distance, a mist slowly appeared. And it was a blood-red mist. After the blood mist appeared, it quickly spread across the dam. In just 2 minutes, it had already enveloped the entire dam. And it continued to spread in all directions. At the same time, the alarms of the virtual sentry tower kept ringing in Immortal's mind. Immortal's heart trembled slightly. The surrounding crowd saw the blood mist that was like a sandstorm, covering the sky and covering the earth. One by one they called out, "Run! Something's wrong." The short-haired girl's expression also changed. At the same time he shouted, "Go!" At the same time, he pulled out 2 short knives from his waist. Immortal furrowed his brows. His eyes of the blood demon could see through the bloody mist. However, Blood Demon didn't find any zombies in the blood mist. Then how did this blood mist form? Why did it suddenly spread in such a large area? With doubts in his heart, He pulled Happy and ran forward. However, the speed at which the blood mist spread far exceeded the speed at which they ran. They only ran a few dozen meters. The blood mist had already caught up with them. In a few seconds, everyone was swallowed up. And the moment the blood mist swallowed them, everyone only felt a bloody smell assailing their nostrils. The blood mist was extremely thick. The visibility around them was less than 5 meters. Everyone stopped in their tracks. The researchers all fell into deep panic. What the hell is this? Think of a way. We can't escape. What should we do? In panic, they all looked at the short-haired girl. You're a zombie hunter. Think of a way. The short-haired girl frowned and roared, Don't talk nonsense. Follow me to the residential area in the east. Even she, a zombie hunter, had never seen such a strange thing. At the moment, the safest way was to find a zombie hunter group. Immortal also thought that this was the best idea. At least if they went there, they would be further away from this strange dam. The short-haired girl led them forward in the blood mist. But a moment later, a researcher's legs suddenly went soft. He fell to the ground. The other researchers were shocked and quickly lowered their heads to check on his condition. However, when they lowered their heads, all the researchers fell to the ground and did not move. Happy, who was next to Immortal, had been holding onto Immortal's arm tightly because he was nervous. But at this moment, his hands loosened weakly and he also fell to the ground. The short-haired girl frowned. Oh no, this blood mist is poisonous. Immortal was also shocked. He bent down and touched Happy's nose. Fortunately, it seemed that he had only fainted. At this moment, the virtual sentry tower's sound in his mind became even more urgent. Beep, beep, beep. It was obvious that danger was approaching. A moment later, a figure vaguely appeared in the mist in front of them. When the short-haired girl saw this, she asked, Who is it? The figure did not answer. The short-haired girl gripped her short knife tightly. The next moment, the figure walked towards the short-haired girl. The short-haired girl spat. If a man dies, his bird will face the sky. If he doesn't die, he will live for thousands of years. *CK. As she spoke, she was about to rush towards the black figure. However, the next moment, she felt that her legs could not exert any strength at all. Then all the strength in her body seemed to have been sucked out. Her legs went soft and she fell to the ground. Obviously, she was also poisoned. However, her physique was much better than that of ordinary people, so she held on for half a minute. Before she lost consciousness, she saw that the figure was already very close to her. She struggled to speak and cursed, *CK. The next moment, her vision turned black, and she lost consciousness. What she did not know was that Immortal, the corpse keeper that she looked down on, was behind her. At this moment he was standing upright. He stared at the black figure in the blood mist without moving. The black figure in the blood mist was clearly puzzled when he saw that the human did not fall. He stood there straight and looked at Immortal. In fact, Immortal himself was a little puzzled. His body had been strengthened. Although he was able to resist the toxins of various poisonous insects, the poison in the blood mist was obviously not an ordinary biological poison. It should be zombie poison. In the past, Immortal had heard from researchers that occasionally there would be some kind of poison in the body of zombies that could make humans faint. They called it zombie poison. However, there was only a small amount of zombie poison in the body of ordinary zombies. However, today's zombie poison was overwhelming. As a zombie hunter, the short-haired girl could only resist the zombie poison for a minute. Even if Immortal was a hunter and could resist for a little longer, he should at least feel that something was wrong with his body. However, the truth was that he did not feel any discomfort. At this moment, the system appeared in time to answer his questions. Frowny face. The Titan Dragon gene has a restraining effect on zombie poison. I see. Immortal thought to himself. The Titan Dragon gene seemed to suppress zombies in all aspects. The attack of the dragon claws could suppress the self-healing ability of mutated zombies. Now, it could directly ignore the zombie poison. This made Immortal look forward to the day when his whole body could transform into a Titan dragon, roaming the sky and overlooking the universe. How domineering would that be? At this moment, the black figure a few meters away saw that the human did not fall. A low growl came from its throat. Then, it pounced on Immortal. In an instant, it crossed a distance of 5 meters. Looking at its speed, it should be at least 10 times faster than the mutated zombie he saw 5 years ago. Chapter 25. In the blood fog, the black shadow pounced on Immortal. With just one step, it covered a distance of 5 meters. In an instant, it arrived in front of Immortal. Judging from the speed alone, this black shadow was at least 10 times stronger than the mutated zombie he saw 5 years ago. However, in the next moment, Immortal raised his right foot high. Then he slammed it down. Woo! His right leg cut through the air at high speed. The thick blood fog in front of him, under his slash, actually split open a crack that was tens of meters long and 5 meters wide. Puff! This kick landed on the top of the black shadow's head. The black shadow's entire body, like a balloon, burst in an instant. Blood and minced meat scattered in all directions. Then, this kick landed on the ground. The ground suddenly exploded with a bang. A trace of the explosion instantly extended to a distance of 50 meters away. 50 meters away, more than 10 zombies surrounded. But under the power of this explosion, their bodies suddenly flew out to both sides. The power of this kick was so strong. Immortal was also a little surprised in his heart. After evolving into a hunter, he had never tested his strength. Just now, he only used 10% of his strength. It had such a shocking effect. At this moment, his pupils had turned blood red. Blood demon eyes opened. Suddenly, the thick blood fog around him seemed to not exist in his eyes. His gaze passed through the thick blood fog and looked around. He saw that there were thousands of zombies surrounding him. These zombies were all wet from head to toe, leaving wet footprints with every step they took. As for the floating zombie corpses above the dam, they had long since disappeared. Obviously, they should be the zombies that were thrown into the dam before. Immortal frowned slightly. These zombies were clearly dead, and even half of their heads had been cut off. How did they come back to life? These thousands of zombies, smelling the scent of a living person, surrounded Immortal one after another. Roar, hiss, hiss. From the throats of the zombies, there were all kinds of strange sounds. They quickly ran toward Immortal, stirring up the blood fog for a while. Immortal did not move. Telekinesis instantly spread out, covering a radius of 500 meters. In the next moment, not far from his feet, a fist-sized rock suddenly trembled slightly. Then he flew up into the air. Then, another rock the size of a human head trembled twice and suddenly flew into the air. Then, the third, the fourth, the fifth, around Immortal, all the rocks weighing less than 50 kilograms were lifted off the ground. Then, it quickly flew around him. His speed was extremely fast. These rocks circled around him, forming a spinning belt of rocks within a radius of 100 meters. At this point, the first zombie had already entered the area where the stones were flying. Bang! A fist-sized rock instantly pierced through the zombie's chest while flying at high speed. Bang! Another rock the size of a human head smashed into the zombie's shoulder. Its shoulder was instantly mangled. One of his arms flew far away. The next moment, bang 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the zombie was blasted into pieces by rocks of all sizes. Then, the second zombie also entered the spinning stone area. Bang bang bang. In an instant he was also turned into meat paste. In front of the high-speed spinning stones, their bodies were as fragile as paper. Zombies had no emotions, so naturally, they had no fear. One by one, they rushed into the spinning stone area. Bang 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 bang. Suddenly, broken limbs and body parts flew together. The flesh and blood were the same color as the stones. This spinning stone area was like a huge meat grinder with a radius of 100 meters. All the zombies that rushed in were almost instantly minced into pieces, scattered on the ground. The ground was also dyed red with blood in just half a minute. Soon, almost all the stones turned blood red. It seemed that Immortal was flying around like a bloody torrent. In just a few seconds, thousands of zombies were torn apart by this bloody torrent. This was the move that Immortal figured out after seeing Sister Ponytail's flying knives. Sister Ponytail could only control 24 flying knives at most now. But Immortal could control thousands of stones. And this move saved more telekinesis than purely using telekinesis to detonate the zombie's head. More than 300 meters away, a mutated zombie saw this scene, and his eyes were full of horror. When did humans become so powerful? In horror, he quickly turned around and wanted to escape. However, it was too late. Immortal moved 100 meters in one step. In 3 steps, he came in front of the mutated zombie. Then he moved his telekinesis. Crash! Thousands of blood-red stones flew up 50 meters in the air. Then they fell from the sky. Like a bloody torrent, they smashed into the mutated zombie. The mutated zombie didn't even have time to react before it was smashed into meat paste. And the stones quickly piled up into a pile of blood-red stones about 5 meters high on its meat paste. It was like a huge blood-red tomb. After doing this, Immortal glanced around with the blood demon's eye. There was no danger for the time being. The alarm of the virtual sentry tower had also disappeared at this time. Immortal returned to the humans. Looking at these humans who had fallen into a coma, he was in a dilemma. How to take these humans out? There was no car, and his system backpack couldn't put living things. At this time, the sound of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded again. Beep, 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 beep. At first, the frequency of the sound was relatively low. But soon, it became more and more urgent. Immortal's heart skipped a beat. He looked around with the blood demon's eye. With one look, he couldn't help but be stunned. He saw in the blood fog, a 5-meter-long big guy was crawling towards him quickly. This thing was covered in scales. It had thick limbs. Its mouth could be grinned to the back of its head. This turned out to be a 5-meter-long crocodile. A mutated giant crocodile. This mutated giant crocodile was extremely fast. It was even faster than a human sprinter. Seeing this, Immortal looked at his right arm. The next moment, his right arm quickly thickened. Pieces of black scales the size of fingernails appeared. His entire right hand turned into a dragon claw. At this moment, the mutated giant crocodile was less than 10 meters away from Immortal. Its pair of small eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. It opened its huge mouth and pounced towards Immortal. Immortal leaped. He was already above the mutated giant crocodile's head. The Titan dragon claw swung down. Whoosh! A black light flashed. The mutated giant crocodile's body was directly cut into 2 at the waist. In fact, Immortal's Titan dragon claw was only as long as his arm. Logically speaking, it was impossible to cut open the mutated giant crocodile's body that was more than 2 meters tall. However, when Immortal swung out the Titan dragon claw, the tip of the dragon claw erupted with an invisible force. This force was even sharper than a sword. In an instant, the mutated giant crocodile that was more than 2 meters tall was cut into 2. And on the ground under the mutated giant crocodile's body, there were 5 huge claw marks that were more than 20 meters long, 2 meters wide, and half a meter deep. The power of this claw was even more terrifying than this. However, at this moment, accompanied by the sound of splashing water, another mutated giant crocodile crawled out of the dam. Then, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, in just half a minute, more than 100 mutated giant crocodiles crawled out of the water. Immortal was also in the mood to kill at this time. With a thought, his left arm also turned into a Titan dragon claw. He directly jumped into the group of mutated giant crocodiles. Whoosh! A claw slashed. An invisible force shot out from the tip of the claw. 3 mutated giant crocodiles that were 5 meters long were instantly cut into 6 pieces. Whoosh! Immortal was in a bowling posture, his right claw almost touching the ground as he slashed forward. That invisible force instantly shot forward more than 100 meters. Within this 100 meters, all the mutated giant crocodiles were cut into several pieces. Immortal was very happy. Wasn't this like what was written in novels, such as Saber Energy, Sword Energy, and Athlete's Foot? He used to only think that the Titan dragon claw was very sharp. He didn't expect that when he used his full strength, the invisible force in it was 100 times sharper than any saber or sword. The destructive power was also far beyond imagination. In excitement, he waved his claws continuously. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Every time he waved his claw, at least a few to more than 10 mutated giant crocodiles would be cut into two. Not long after, the mutated giant crocodile corpses were lying on the side of the dam in a mess. Immortal looked at his dragon claws and then looked at the mutated giant crocodile corpses on the ground. The Titan dragon claw was simply ridiculously strong. These mutated giant crocodiles had palm-sized hard scales on their bodies. Even bullets couldn't penetrate them. It was estimated that even a rocket might not be able to cause damage to them. The Titan dragon claw could easily kill the mutated giant crocodiles with just the invisible force. Just as Immortal was sighing in his heart. In his mind, the voice of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded quickly. D. Chapter 26. After Immortal killed hundreds of mutated giant crocodiles, the voice of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded in his mind. Immortal immediately raised his head and scanned the surroundings with his blood demon eyes. The next moment he looked above the dam. He saw that the blood-red water in the dam was constantly churning. The water was getting bigger and bigger. It gradually turned into a blood wave. At first, the blood wave was only a meter high. Gradually, it became higher and higher. It reached more than 10 meters. Whoosh! In the rolling blood wave, a huge figure emerged from the water. Roar! The huge mouth opened, and a shocking roar was heard. The water seemed to be trembling under the roar. Immortal looked at the figure carefully. It was more than 20 meters long. Its back was covered with black scales. Each scale was more than 30 centimeters in diameter. On its back, there was a spine that looked like a sword dragon. Its head was like a crocodile, but there were more than 10 thick barbs. It looked more ferocious than an ordinary giant crocodile. In the huge mouth, each of the sharp teeth was more than half a meter long. This was a mutated crocodile king. The mutated crocodile king glanced at the mutated giant crocodile corpses on the ground. In a pair of blood-red eyes, anger rose. Again it roared to the sky. Roar! Immortal moved his mind. The dragon claws on his arms quickly disappeared. The next moment, the bones in his right hand pierced the skin and quickly grew. It turned into a 3-meter-long black spear. Then, he grabbed the sky splitter dragon spear with his right hand and used a little strength. In an instant he threw it. Whoosh! The dragon spear was like a black lightning. In an instant, it traveled more than 200 meters. Chi! It directly pierced through the head of the mutated giant crocodile king. Then, it flew far away. After flying more than 300 meters, it fell into the water with a splash. The roaring giant crocodile king stopped abruptly. The next moment, it fell backward with a bang. Splash! A huge blood wave more than 10 meters high splashed up. A moment later, its corpse sank into the blood water. Instant kill. The mutated crocodile king thought that it could easily swallow this human. It never expected that it wouldn't last as long as the small mutated crocodiles under its command. It emerged from the water and roared twice. Then he was killed instantly. It was probably the most embarrassing mutated beast to have died. Immortal used his bloodthirsty demon eyes to scan his surroundings. There was no longer any danger around. The voice of the virtual sentry tower stopped ringing. He thought for a moment. He took out a bottle of recovery potion. This recovery potion was not meant for him to consume. The battle just now seemed very intense, and it must have consumed a lot of his energy. But in fact, it was completely one-sided. Until now, he hadn't even broken a single sweat. His recovery medicine was for Happy. Once Happy took the recovery medicine, he woke up in less than 3 minutes. When she saw Immortal, her eyes flickered slightly. Immortal knew what she meant. He chuckled. "Don't worry, I'm fine. You're fine too." A sunny smile appeared on Happy's face. She sat up. When she saw the flesh and blood around her and the researchers lying motionless on the ground, she couldn't help but feel nervous again. She subconsciously grabbed Emoshur's arm. Emoshur smiled at her comfortingly and said, "They just fainted. They should wake up soon." Happy nodded. At this moment, Emoshur saw that there was no danger around. With a thought, he said, "That's right. System, sign in." He didn't sign in before he came out this morning. He planned to leave the sign-in opportunity in the wilderness. It was his first time signing in outside the base. He didn't know if he could get anything good. The system's voice sounded in his mind. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Wilderness Dam. Sign in reward, 1. Mutated Giant Crocodile King Gene Enhancer 1. 2. Zombie Giant Crocodile Blood 1 drop. He looked at the gene enhancer in his backpack in his mind. Mutated Giant Crocodile King Gene Enhancer. 1. After injection, it can stimulate cells and produce mutated Giant Crocodile King scales on the body's skin, greatly increasing defense. 2. After injection, the body will emit the mutated Giant Crocodile King's aura, which is an absolute deterrent to mutated giant crocodiles. The Zombie Giant Crocodile Blood. When exposed to the air, it will emit the Zombie Giant Crocodile King's aura. It is an extremely strong deterrent to zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. Emoshur nodded. The reward this time was very practical. He looked to the east of the dam, at the residential area in the distance. If he signed in there tomorrow, he didn't know what he would get. Just as Emoshur was thinking about this, roar! A shocking roar suddenly came from the residential area. This sound was somewhat similar to the mutated giant crocodile king's roar. Emoshur frowned slightly. There were also mutated giant crocodiles there? He pondered for a moment and said, "Something might have happened. You stay here, I'll go and take a look." He wasn't a saint who would take the risk to save the hunter group. It was just that it was the apocalypse, and all humans shared a common destiny. If something happened to the hunter group, the strength of the base would be greatly reduced. Then it wouldn't be so easy for him to continue hiding in the base and signing in comfortably in the future. But Happy grabbed Emoshur's arm, and there was a look of concern in her eyes. It was as if she was saying, "Don't go." Emoshur smiled at her comfortingly and said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Then he took out the small bottle he had just obtained from signing in. There was a drop of dark red blood in the bottle. Zombie Giant Crocodile King's blood. He stuffed the bottle into Happy's hand. He reminded her, "If you encounter danger, open the bottle cap. Remember?" Seeing that Emoshur insisted on going, Happy could only nod. When she first came to the zombie farm, she was only 15 years old. During the 5 years in the city, Emoshur had always been like a big brother and took care of her. So she still listened to Emoshur's words. Emoshur turned his head and took 2 steps. But his footsteps stopped again. When he turned around, he saw that Happy's eyes were following him. He walked back again. He rubbed Happy's head. Immediately, Happy's hair was messed up. In the past few years, the two of them had become very familiar with each other. Occasionally, they would play around like siblings. Every time, he would rub Happy's head like this. He would rub her neatly combed hair into a mess. A smile immediately appeared on Happy's face. Emoshur exhorted again, "Don't worry. Remember, open the bottle cap when you encounter danger." Happy nodded heavily. She expressed that she remembered. Although she didn't know what was strange in the bottle, she had always believed in Emoshur's words. Only then did Emoshur feel relieved and strode towards the residential area. A moment later, he disappeared from Happy's sight. More than 5 minutes later, Emoshur was already not far away from the residential area. He was not in a hurry to investigate the situation in the residential area. Instead, with a thought, he took out the mutated giant crocodile king gene enhancer. He clenched his left hand into a fist and gently exerted force with his right finger. He injected the enhancer into his body. Chapter 27. Emoshur injected the mutant giant crocodile king gene enhancer into his body. He began to feel a burning sensation in his body. This feeling was far from being as strong as the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. However, he could clearly feel that some cells in his body were undergoing rapid genetic mutations. Most of these cells were located on the surface of the body. In the beginning, only a small portion of the cells were undergoing a breakthrough. However, the surface of his body did not change at all. Gradually, more and more cells underwent genetic mutations. It slowly approached a critical point. At a certain moment, this critical point was finally broken. The quantitative change triggered a qualitative change. The surface of his body began to change rapidly. The surface of his skin continued to harden and formed scales the size of a fingernail. Just like the scales on the mutant giant crocodile. These scales were not metallic black like the dragonclaw scales. Instead, there was a faint red color in the black. Soon, these scales covered his entire body. Even his head was covered by scales. Only a pair of eyes were exposed. Immortal was delighted. Previously, other than the dragon claw, his body's defense was not too strong. But now that the mutant giant crocodile scales covered his entire body, his body's defense would be greatly enhanced. Then he leaped. In an instant he was 100 meters away. He leaped toward the residential area. Back to 20 minutes ago. On the east side of the dam, in the residential area. The hunter group drove into the residential area and found that there were indeed many zombies in the residential area. There were about 2,000 of them. They were extremely excited. All the hunter group scrambled to pounce on those zombies. After all, there were too many monks and too little porridge. If they were a little slower, there would be no zombies to kill. After they killed the zombies in the courtyard, they searched the residential building. There were also many zombies in the residential building. However, with the strength of their hunter group, it was only a matter of time before they killed these zombies. Most of the 3,000 hunter group entered the residential building. Only the leader, Sister Ponytail, the deputy leader, Yang Kong, and a few psychokinesis stayed in the courtyard. They thought that the cleaning this time would be as smooth as before. But 5 minutes later, a scream suddenly came. They hurriedly raised their heads to look. They saw the 5th floor of a residential building. A corpse hunter fell from above. Bang! He fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Their hearts trembled as they hurriedly rushed over. A bloody hole the size of an arm appeared where the heart of the corpse hunter was. The heart was nowhere to be seen in the bloody hole. Not good! Yang Kong exclaimed and hurriedly wanted to go over to check. However, another cry of agony was heard. On the residential building next to them, another hunter crashed through the window and fell down. Following that, screams continued to ring out. The expressions of Sister Ponytail and the others changed. Sister Ponytail quickly spread out her psychic power to check the surroundings. Soon, they found that there were mutated zombies in the surrounding buildings. Moreover, these mutated zombies were much faster than the mutated zombies he had seen before. His strength was even stronger. Even a level 5 zombie hunter was no match for these mutated zombies. At this time, these hunters had become the targets of the mutated zombies. Miss Ponytail knew that something was wrong. He hastily called out, "All hunters, withdraw from the residential building." Soon, the hunters withdrew one after another. But even so, more than 50 hunters had been killed. Sister Ponytail frowned. In less than a minute, more than 50 hunters were lost. Since the establishment of the hunter group, there had never been such a heavy loss. If those mutated zombies came to the yard, she could control the 24 flying knives and behead them. However, those mutated zombies seemed to know the power of psychokinesis and did not come to the yard at all. She could only order, "Everyone, withdraw from the community." Everyone never doubted her orders. They immediately withdrew out of the community. However, before they could withdraw from the community, a hunter suddenly shouted, "Leader, what is that?" Everyone heard this and looked towards the entrance of the community. They saw that at the entrance of the community overgrown with weeds, a cloud of mist suddenly spread out. Moreover, this cloud of mist was not an ordinary white, but blood red. The blood mist was spreading at an extremely fast speed towards the hunter group. Obviously, they could not escape even if they wanted to. Sister Ponytail immediately ordered, "Everyone, back to back, Pay attention to defense. Before she finished speaking, the body hunters at the front were already swallowed by the blood mist. In less than half a minute, the entire hunter group was shrouded in the blood mist. In the blood mist, the visibility was only about 5 meters. Moreover, the psychokinesis found that in the blood mist, the range of their psychokinesis detection was greatly reduced. Even Sister Ponytail, a level 2 psychokinesis, could only detect a range of about 100 meters. Fortunately, as long as the psychokinesis stood within the range of their psychokinesis could be shared. So now, it was equivalent to that every psychokinesis could detect a range of about 300 meters around them. Under such detection, all the psychokinesis faces changed drastically. They saw that the hunter group was densely packed with zombies. These zombies were constantly pouring out from the surrounding residential buildings. All of their paths of retreat had been sealed off. If they wanted to leave, they would have to step over these zombies' bodies. These zombies, if not 70 to 80,000, were at least 30 to 50,000. And among these zombies, there were many mutated zombies. If they all swarmed up, even if the hunter group had more than 3,000 hunters, it would be impossible to stop them. Guju Tao, who was somewhat effeminate, was now the captain of the hunter group. He was one of the first hunters. At this moment, he heard these psychokinesis say that there were tens of thousands of zombies surrounding them. He could not help but think back to 5 years ago. On that night 5 years ago, the 15 of them were the first hunters. They thought that they were invincible and became arrogant. They broke into the encirclement of thousands of zombies and were almost wiped out. If it were not for the timely appearance of the mysterious powerhouse, they would have died many years ago. At that time, they thought that they had learned a profound lesson and would never make the same mistake again. But they were wrong. Humans were forgetful. 5 years later, a hunter group with more than 3,000 people, 13 psychokinesis. They became arrogant again. As a result, they were once again surrounded by enemies. Thinking of this, he could not help but look at Sister Ponytail. The mysterious powerhouse from 5 years ago, the current Captain Ponytail. The powerful level 2 psychokinesis. This time, could Captain Ponytail repeat the miracle from last time? The others nearby also turned their gazes to Sister Ponytail. In this situation, it seemed that only Captain Ponytail could save them. After all, she was once the mysterious powerhouse. The existence that could kill thousands of zombies with one move. Chapter 28. The 3,000 hunters were besieged by tens of thousands of zombies. It seemed that they would not be able to escape. In this moment of crisis, everyone recalled that night 5 years ago. So, everyone looked at Miss Ponytail. 5 years ago, it was her appearance that killed thousands of zombies with one move. That saved the entire base. If there was anyone who could save them now, it could only be her. However, what they did not know was that Miss Ponytail was thinking, is the mysterious powerhouse among them? But she also knew that she could not only put her hopes on the mysterious powerhouse. Maybe the mysterious powerhouse did not come out with them at all. Her face was cold and she said, "All hunters, protect psychokinesis. Don't let any zombies get close to psychokinesis. All psychokinesis except for me, divide into 12 areas and guard the surroundings with your telekinesis." Psychokinesis was very strong. They could fight against 10 or even dozens of hunters. However, their fleshly bodies were very fragile. They were like ordinary people. As long as they were approached, ordinary people could stab them to death with a fruit knife. Under Miss Ponytail's order, everyone began to make a defensive posture in an orderly manner. At this moment, roars were heard from all directions. Roar, roar, roar. The surrounding zombies pounced on them. All of the psychics felt their hearts skip a beat. They spread out their telekinesis. At the same time, each psychokinesis had at least 12 flying knives. They used their telekinesis to control the flying daggers, forming a barrier of light around the hunting group. A zombie that just entered the range of the light was instantly killed by a piercing through the head. Puff, 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 hundreds of thousands of zombies had their heads pierced through almost in an instant. The surrounding flying knives were all stained with blood in an instant. The flying knives were stained with blood. The shield of light was also blood red. Of course, under the cover of the blood fog, those hunters could not see all of this. They could only hear the endless roars of countless zombies. From this, one could imagine the intensity of the battle. For a full 5 minutes, tens of thousands of zombies fell under the flying knives. But these zombies were just ordinary zombies. As for the mutated zombies around, they had not made a move yet. They were biding their time. Sister Ponytail and the other psychokinesis patients all had grave expressions on their faces. They could feel that the zombies around them were like an endless flood. Although their telekinesis attacks were strong, there would always be a time when they would be exhausted. At that time, no one would be able to stop the zombies. At this moment, a roar was heard. Roar! Along with this roar, the zombies suddenly stopped attacking and roaring. The surroundings instantly went from a state of intense battle to a dead silence. All the hunters were stunned. They could not see anything and could only rely on their hearing. But just now, the battle was clearly very intense, so why did it suddenly become quiet? Psychokinesis, on the other hand, used psychokinesis to investigate. He found that the surrounding zombies were continuously moving to the side. A path was left open. Then, one after another, huge figures appeared in these tunnels. Each of them was 5 meters long. He was about 1.5 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in thick and heavy scales. This is a mutated giant crocodile. Psychokinesis exclaimed. When the surrounding hunters heard this, their expressions changed. They had seen almost all mutated beasts, but they had never heard of a mutated giant crocodile. Roar! The roar of a wild beast was heard. Roar! Dozens, even hundreds of roars sounded at the same time. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Sister Ponytail quickly said, "Psychokinesis, pay attention to those mutated giant crocodiles. Hunters on the periphery, prepare for battle." Everyone's expression froze. At this moment, the first mutated giant crocodile had already entered the range of the flying daggers. Suddenly, dozens of flying daggers, like thousands of swords, attacked it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, all the flying daggers only left a few sparks on the mutated giant crocodile's body. The flying daggers collided with the scales on its body, making a shrill sound. Ding, 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 ding. Seeing this, Sister Ponytail's heart sank. She quickly gathered her psychokinesis and controlled the 24 flying daggers to stab the mutated giant crocodile. Puff, 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 puff. The 24 flying daggers, without exception, all pierced the head of the mutated giant crocodile. However, although these flying daggers pierced the head of the mutated giant crocodile, they only went half an inch in. And such a small injury did not affect the mutated giant crocodile at all with its thick scales. Instead, it provoked the mutated giant crocodile's ferocity. It roared and pounced on the hunters. It opened its mouth. Crack! With just one bite, 3 hunters were bitten in half. Sister Ponytail was shocked and roared, "Psychokinesis, attack the mutated giant crocodile with all your might." Therefore, the psychokinesis of the 13 psychokinesis, including Sister Ponytail, twisted together their psychokinesis. They controlled more than 100 flying daggers. They attacked the mutated giant crocodile together. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Sister Ponytail's flying daggers first left wounds on the mutated giant crocodile's body. The other psychokinesis flying daggers took the opportunity to attack these wounds. Puff, 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 puff. For a full minute, the mutated giant crocodile's body was covered in wounds and dripping with blood. Finally, it roared unwillingly and its huge head finally hung down. However, before the hunter group could breathe a sigh of relief, mutated giant crocodiles appeared in almost all directions. There were more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles. They pounced at the hunter group in the center at an extremely fast speed. Sister Ponytail was the first to sense the 300 mutated giant crocodiles. At this moment, Her face was ashen. The rest of the psychokinesis felt their hands and feet turn cold after sensing the 300 mutated giant crocodiles. Their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. The 13 psychokinesis had only managed to kill one mutated giant crocodile with great difficulty. Now, more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles pounced at them at the same time. They had no way to deal with it. Fire! Sister Ponytail roared loudly. Those hunters carried firearms with them. When they heard this, although they could not see their target, they all pulled the trigger at the surrounding blood fog. Thousands of rifles spat out tongues of fire at the blood fog. Ding 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 ding. In the blood fog, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. When everyone heard this sound, their expressions became extremely ugly. When the bullets hit these mutated giant crocodiles, other than splashing a few sparks, they did not have any effect at all. And those mutated giant crocodiles were getting closer and closer. At the same time, there were zombies attacking together with the mutated giant crocodiles. Thousands of zombies. Moreover, those mutated zombies that had not made a move until now finally moved this time. Following these mutated giant crocodiles, they attacked the hunter group. 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters, all the psychokinesis had fallen into deep despair. It was over. It was completely over. In front of this flood of zombies and mutated giant crocodiles, it would not take more than 20 minutes. Their entire hunter group would be wiped out. And those hunters, although they could not see, but they could hear. Tens of thousands of roars, tens of thousands of roars, the sound of rolling footsteps like muffled thunder. They were as if they were in the middle of a storm. In front of nature, humans were so desperate. At this moment, they were so desperate. However, at this moment, a shocking roar suddenly came out. Roar. Chapter 29. They listened to the rumbling footsteps around them. Thousands of roars. All the members of the hunter group were wrapped in overwhelming despair. In extreme despair, they couldn't help but look at Commander Ma in the center. If there was anyone who could save them now, it would be the mysterious powerhouse, Commander Ma. However, only the deputy commander, Yang Kong, knew. Commander Ma was not the mysterious powerhouse at all. Commander Ma was indeed very strong. The most powerful existence in the hunter group. Even if more than 50 hunters attacked her together, they might not be her opponent. Psychokinesis combined was not as strong as her. However, compared to the mysterious powerhouse in Yang Kang's impression, she was still far, far away. However, Yang Kang did not despair because of this. If there was someone who had the strongest desire to survive at this time, then it was only him. He had a belief in his heart. No matter what, he could not die. 3 years ago, his wife had passed away due to illness. Only the father and daughter were left to rely on each other. His daughter was still waiting for him at the base. If he died here, how would his daughter live alone in the future? So, no matter what, he had to live. Under the current circumstances, his only hope of survival was the mysterious powerhouse. He forced himself to believe that the mysterious powerhouse was nearby. The mysterious powerhouse would not leave him in the lurch. In this situation of crisis, when Fantuan was about to be wiped out, suddenly, a shocking roar was heard. Roar, roar. This roar was like the birth of a giant beast that could destroy the world. It was like the roar of an ancient dragon. The tens of thousands of zombies trembled when they heard the roar. These ordinary zombies should not have any emotions. There should not be any fear. But at this moment, when they heard this roar, they turned around and fled. As if it was the roar of the devil. The more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles also trembled after hearing this roar. Then, all the mutated giant crocodiles turned around and fled. In fact, after this roar, Liqia's expression changed drastically. Even the surrounding blood mist instantly rolled away. When the blood mist quickly retreated, everyone saw the surrounding situation. The thousands of zombies fled in all directions. Many zombies even fell to the ground and were trampled by the zombies behind them. They seemed to be able to hear the sound of the zombies' limbs being broken. As for those mutated giant crocodiles, They were even more terrified and quickly fled. The zombies in front of them were mercilessly trampled into meat paste. Everyone in the hunting group looked at all of this with incomparable horror. Miss Ponytail was also extremely shocked. The ponytail that had been swinging back and forth in front of the men was no longer swinging. Because of the shock, all the psychokinesis people controlled the knife throwing. At this moment, all of them fell to the ground with tinkling sounds, including Sister Ponytail. With a roar, tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated giant crocodiles were scared away. What in the world was it? How could it be so powerful? Yang Kang's heart skipped a beat. A mysterious expert. At the same time, at the entrance of the residential area, Immortal, who was wearing a camouflage uniform, was standing there motionlessly. His skin was the same color as the surrounding weeds. The camouflage uniform was also the same color as the surrounding grass. His entire person seemed to have become one with the surrounding environment. When he had just rushed over, the blood demons I saw through the layers of blood mist and saw that the hunting group was almost wiped out. He immediately opened his mouth. The corpse roar technique was used. With a roar, tens of thousands of zombies were scared away. As for the 300 mutated giant crocodiles, they fled because they felt the aura of the mutated giant crocodile king on him. After injecting the mutated giant crocodile king gene enhancer, his body would emit the aura of the mutated giant crocodile king. With a roar, it was easy to scare away 300 mutated giant crocodiles. However, was it over? Since Immortal had already come, how could he watch these zombies and the 300 mutated giant crocodiles escape? He watched the tens of thousands of zombies drilling into the surrounding residential buildings. Then he saw the 300 mutated giant crocodiles drilling into every corner of the residential area. He smiled faintly. His telekinesis instantly spread out. In the next moment he saw that in the courtyard, more than 3,000 people in the hunting group fell to the ground at the same time. Immortal's telekinesis could control any object under 50 kilograms. Although he couldn't throw these people away. However, in a situation where they were unprepared, it was easy to trip them to the ground. More than 3,000 people in the hunting group fell to the ground at the same time. How spectacular! More than 3,000 people in the hunting group were all terrified. Could it be that after scaring away the zombies and mutated giant crocodiles, he was going to fight them? Just as everyone in the hunting group was shocked and wanted to crawl out of the hole. Immortal moved. The bones in his right hand made cracking sounds. His entire right hand quickly became bigger. In a moment his entire right hand turned into a wide, pitch-black axe blade. The axe blade was half moon-shaped. At its widest part, it was more than a meter wide. This was the genetic martial art that was formed in his body after he evolved into a hunter. For 5 years he had never used his full strength. This time he would try his full strength. At this moment his eyes flashed. His right arm swept across. The axe blade quickly expanded as he swept across. In just a moment, it expanded to more than 500 meters wide. This more than 500 meters wide, half-moon-shaped huge axe blade swept across half a meter above the ground. Everyone only saw a huge black shadow, less than a meter above their heads, sweeping past at an extremely fast speed. The next moment, they saw all the zombies that were running away. Their bodies were instantly cut in half. Tens of thousands of zombies were cut in half at the same time. How magnificent was this scene! Even those mutated zombies, without exception, were cut into 2 pieces. And zombies wouldn't die if their heads weren't severely injured. But now, after these zombies were cut in half at the waist, they all fell to the ground, motionless. It was as if the black shadow just now had some kind of factor that could restrain zombies. Mutated zombies had self-healing factors in their bodies. Their wounds would heal quickly. But now, after being cut in half, their wounds didn't show any signs of healing. It wasn't just these zombies. All the mutated giant crocodiles were also cut in half by this black shadow. They were originally running away crazily. But as they ran, they were cut in half. This made everyone's eyes widen. Psychokinesis had just spent a lot of effort to kill a mutated giant crocodile. But now, more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles were instantly killed by that black shadow. How sharp was that black shadow? Previously, the entire community was filled with the roars of zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. At this moment, it instantly fell into a dead silence. Even the members of the hunter group who were alive didn't make a sound. Everyone looked at the corpses on the ground around them, smelling the bloody smell that assaulted their noses. They were all shocked to the extreme. How powerful must one be to be able to do all this? Gulp. It wasn't until a moment later that a hunter's throat made a swallowing sound. This sound seemed to have triggered a chain effect. Gulp. 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 Almost everyone's throat kept making swallowing sounds. Chapter 30. Only the last ray of the setting sun was left on the horizon. But this ray of setting sun made the entire horizon as red as blood. The entire abandoned community was also dyed red. There were more than 3,000 zombie hunters in this community. But these 3,000 zombie hunters were all dumbstruck. Their faces were all full of shock. Gulp. After a while, the sound of swallowing saliva was heard one after another. At this moment, they finally understood why more than 3,000 of them fell at the same time. Obviously, it was done by the person who killed these zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. If they didn't fall to the ground just now, all of them would definitely end up like these zombies. Killing more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles and tens of thousands of zombies in an instant. Just one move. This made many people recall what happened 5 years ago. At that time, a mysterious powerhouse suddenly appeared and killed thousands of zombies in an instant. And now, he killed tens of thousands of zombies and more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles in an instant. Who else could have such means besides him? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Commander Ma. They instinctively thought of Commander Ma. After all, they had always thought that the mysterious powerhouse from 5 years ago was Commander Ma. However, when they saw Commander Ma fall to the ground like them, they were stunned. All of them were stunned. It seemed that the person who attacked was not Commander Ma at all. Moreover, that roar just now shocked tens of thousands of zombies and more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles. It was not Commander Ma at all. The 12 psychokinesis people saw it even more clearly. With their telekinesis, they could clearly feel that the person who attacked just now was standing in the direction of the community's gate. They hurriedly looked at the gate. However, as far as their eyes could see, there was no one. At this time, Commander Ma was already too ashamed to show his face. Was he finally going to be exposed? These zombie hunters had always thought of themselves as the mysterious powerhouse. They worshipped and believed in themselves. They had no doubts about their orders. But now, they found out that they had been deceiving them all along. What should they think? Yang Kong was the first to stand up. Because he was excited, he used too much strength when he stood up and almost fell to the ground again. His eyes were like a radar, constantly searching around. 5 years ago, the mysterious powerhouse saved him. 5 years later, he was saved by the mysterious powerhouse again. He was not afraid of death. But he was afraid that his daughter would lose her support. If he died here today, how would his daughter survive alone? And now, the mysterious expert had not only saved his life. It was also to ensure that his daughter would not lose him as her pillar of support. He was afraid that he would never be able to repay this kindness in this lifetime. He just wanted to say, "Thank you," to that mysterious expert. However, as far as he could see, there was no mysterious expert. He searched for a long time. He withdrew his gaze in disappointment. In the end, he turned his gaze back to Sister Ponytail. He had already made up his mind. He was unable to repay the favor of the mysterious expert. But at the very least, he wanted to let everyone know that all of this was not done by Commander Ma, but by a mysterious expert. This was the only thing he could do for the mysterious expert. However, before he could speak, a shocking roar could be heard all of a sudden. Oh, roar. All the members of the hunter group were shocked. However, they could clearly tell that this roar was not from the same creature as the one that had repelled all the zombies just now. Moreover, the two roars came from different directions. The previous roar came from the gate of the residential area. And this roar came from the back door of the residential area. The next moment, accompanied by this roar, a huge figure quickly appeared. Everyone in the hunter group was startled when they saw the figure. It was also a mutated giant crocodile. However, this mutated giant crocodile was several times larger than the other mutated giant crocodiles. From head to toe, it was more than 30 meters long. It was taller than a one-story building. Such a huge mutated giant crocodile made everyone's expression change. This was the largest mutated creature they had seen so far. Obviously, this mutated giant crocodile should be a mutated giant crocodile king. It was covered with huge scales that were about half a meter in diameter. On its back, there was a triangular spine that was the size of a table. It was like a table-sized sharp blade that extended from its neck to the tip of its tail. On its head, there were dozens of thick barbs that were more than a meter long. This made its entire body look even more ferocious. It spread its 4 claws and ran quickly toward the hunting group. It was like a fast-moving hill. Rumble, rumble. Because of its running, the ground kept shaking. Behind it, a cloud of dust rose like a sandstorm. Miss Ponytail saw this and quickly shouted, "Dodge!" Only then did everyone come back to their senses and hurriedly dodge to the sides. If they did not dodge, they would be trampled into meat paste by this mutated giant crocodile king. In the next moment, the mutated giant crocodile king ran past them. When the mutated giant crocodile king ran past, they could clearly feel the huge and terrifying aura on its body, and the smell of blood that assailed their nostrils. The remaining glass on the surrounding buildings fell to the ground as it ran past. This sent chills down everyone's spines. Its tail inadvertently swept across the corner of a residential building. Rumble, a large part of the corner of the building was actually swept away by its huge tail. The abandoned cars in the residential area were like toys under its huge claws. They were easily trampled into metal sheets. However, the mutated giant crocodile king's target was obviously not them. When it ran past these people, it did not pay attention to them at all. Instead, it turned a corner and ran straight toward the entrance of the residential area. Everyone understood what he meant. It was very obvious that it was running toward the mysterious expert. Then, could the mysterious expert defeat it? At the same time, at the entrance of the residential area, in the grass that was half the height of a person, Immortal was standing there in a carefree manner. However, in his heart, he was also shocked by his own move. The power of this genetic martial art was actually so great. These people from the hunting group thought that what they saw was already very strong. However, only Immortal knew that the power of the axe blade was much stronger than what they had seen. After retrieving his genetic martial art, Immortal looked at the mutated giant crocodile king. His right arm had become 3 times thicker. His entire right arm was covered by black scales the size of a fingernail. His right hand had turned into a dragon claw. The sharp dragon claw flashed with a cold light under the last ray of the setting sun. He slowly raised his head. He looked at the mutated giant crocodile king that was running like 10,000 horses galloping. The mutated giant crocodile king was getting closer and closer to him. 300 meters, he did not move. 150 meters, he still did not move. 100 meters, he stood there calmly as if nothing had happened, facing the berserk mutated giant crocodile king. At this moment, he looked like a lonely boat in front of a tsunami, or like a lonely lamp in front of a hurricane. Finally, when the mutated giant crocodile king was only 50 meters away from him, his eyes shone with a bright light. He jumped up. Chapter 31. When the mutated giant crocodile king was only 50 meters away from Immortal, he finally made his move. His eyes shone brightly. His body leaped up. Facing the mutated giant crocodile king that was pouncing over, he jumped up. His right claw swung diagonally from the top right to the bottom left. Swish, an invisible force shot out from the Titan's dragon claw. The lone boat turned into Noah's Ark at this moment. The lone lantern burst out with dazzling light at this moment. The mutated giant crocodile king that had just pounced in front of Immortal was instantly torn into two halves. Immortal could clearly see that its pair of blood-red eyes were filled with fear and despair. Immortal sighed in his heart. There was no one who could fight. At the same time, after the invisible force killed the mutated giant crocodile king, it continued to extend outwards. If someone could see the invisible chi, they would see that it was 5 transparent chi in the shape of sharp claws. This invisible force, in an instant, crossed hundreds of meters. From the top right to the bottom left. It brazenly crossed. At this moment, the air seemed to have been torn into a huge crack. After the invisible force passed through a residential building in the distance, a huge crack appeared from the top right to the bottom left. The next moment, rumble, the 6-story residential building collapsed with a loud bang. Smoke and dust immediately spread out. Only a slanted shadow of the residential building was left standing in the smoke and dust. At this moment, the 3,000 hunters were all aghast. They did not see how the mysterious strong man made his move. Under the twilight, at the entrance of the residential area, a blurry figure suddenly jumped up and waved his arm. The next moment, the mutated giant crocodile king that was like a small mountain was cut into two halves. At the same time, a huge crack appeared on a residential building. Then it collapsed. What kind of terrifying strength was this? However, it was not over yet. After the collapse of this building, the building next to it also collapsed. It also collapsed with a loud bang. Then the second building, the third building, the fourth building. More than 40 buildings in the residential area, as if they were infected, collapsed one after another. Suddenly, smoke and dust rolled in like a tsunami. In an instant, the entire residential area was submerged. After a long time, the last glimmer of light disappeared from the horizon. The moon rose slowly from the east. The smoke and dust finally dissipated. At this moment, under the moonlight, everyone saw that the neighborhood no longer existed. Only a large area of ruins remained. The only building that was still standing in the residential area was the residential building that had been cut down at an angle. Only half of it remained, standing obliquely under the cold moonlight. Seems so lonely. It was only now that everyone understood. It turned out that the attack that had killed tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated crocodiles had already destroyed all the residential buildings. However, because the speed was too fast, the incision was too smooth. Therefore, there didn't seem to be anything unusual about the building. After the first residential building collapsed, the rest of the residential buildings collapsed one after another. Thinking of this, everyone was once again filled with shock. You look at me, I look at you. Everyone could clearly see the shock on each other's faces and the disbelief in their eyes. One move to kill the giant crocodile king. A residential building behind the mutated giant crocodile king was directly cut off. They thought that this kind of combat power was already very abnormal. However, they didn't expect that the first move was the most abnormal. Not only did it kill tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated giant crocodiles. Moreover, it even cut down more than 40 buildings in the district. This destructive power was simply beyond their understanding. Looking at the ruins under the moonlight, everyone felt as if they were hallucinating. All of this was so unreal. Such terrifying destructive power could only be seen in myths and legends. That mysterious strong man didn't seem to be a creature of this world at all. Such destructive power, only people like Gonggong who rammed into Mount Buzhou and Ho Yi who shot down the sun were qualified to have it. Thinking of this, a word appeared in everyone's mind. God. God of heaven. Only God of heaven could have such terrifying destructive power. A moment later, everyone's eyes unconsciously returned to Sister Ponytail. At this time, Sister Ponytail also felt ashamed after the extreme shock. What kind of existence was this? One move to cut off more than 40 buildings. He was so powerful that it was simply unimaginable for her. And she actually pretended to be him for 5 whole years. It was simply stupid to the extreme. Audacious to the extreme. If that existence wanted to kill her, she was afraid that she would have died 800 times already. When she thought of this, she was overwhelmed with shame and fear. After the shock and excitement, Yang Kong was the first to stand up again. "Commander Ma, tell us." Sister Ponytail felt weak all over. Her hands and feet were cold. She could feel that everyone was looking at her as if they were looking at a notorious liar. For 5 years, these people's worship and trust in her suddenly disappeared. Only suspicion and anger were left. And at this time, that mysterious strong man might be watching her. Such a huge psychological pressure almost made her collapse. A moment later, she slowly raised her head. She whispered, "I'm not the mysterious strong man at all." As soon as she said this, everyone's gazes turned from suspicion to anger, although they had already guessed this result just now. However, when they heard Regiment Commander Ma say it out loud, they were still furious. The scene was silent for a full 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, someone finally spoke. "You lied to us for 5 years. Why did you pretend to be the mysterious strong man?" A series of furious questions could be heard. For 5 years, they trusted this person so much. But now they found out that this person had been lying to them. How could this not make them angry? Impeccable acting. If it weren't for the apocalypse, the Oscar award would have been in your bag. Sounds of mockery could be heard continuously. When Yang Kong saw this, the anger in his heart finally subsided a little. He secretly said in his heart, "Benefactor, it's been 5 years. The shameless person who pretended to be you has finally been exposed." Sister Ponytail lowered her head and said nothing. After a long time, she raised her head, facing the angry questions of the people, facing the ridicule of the people. She felt much more relaxed. 5 years. She didn't want to pretend to be someone else. She wanted to be herself long ago. But the base chief didn't allow her to do so. But now, she said what was in her heart. She suddenly felt relaxed. She calmly faced the questioning and ridicule of the people. This was the retribution for pretending to be the mysterious strong man. Then she raised her voice, said to everyone, "I'm sorry." After that, she slowly turned around. In the moonlight, she walked to the distance. Now, she was too ashamed to go back to the base. She could already imagine that when she returned to the base, she would face everyone's ridicule and abuse. Moreover, if she returned to the base, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear too much ridicule and abuse. She would eventually tell her uncle. If these people knew that everything was instigated by her uncle, their base chief, what would they think? The people were easily led. If they knew all this, would they calm down and listen to her uncle's explanation? With her understanding of human nature, it was impossible in a short time. At that time, she couldn't imagine what the angry people would do. However, her uncle was the pillar of the entire base. If her uncle fell, the consequences would be unimaginable. So, she could only bear all this by herself. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.